wonderful freaks. Welcome to a brand new episode of Frequels. I'm EJ Leeson, and with me, as always, my co-host, hands off Nick Cage, because this man's a national treasure, Rory Colorasi.
I was also charged with trying to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Oh,
yeah.
Weird coincidence.
Did some time.
That was the day I picked him up from jail.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. You know, I got beat up really bad while I was in jail, but we don't have to talk about that.
We'll skip over that.
Who hasn't tried to steal the Declaration of Independence every now and again?
Yeah.
Something to do.
It's so tempting.
It's so tempting.
Just there.
And of course, the podkeeper himself, if you give him raspberries, he'll give you a loaded diaper. Young Vince, what's up, buddy?
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Buddy.
What's going on?
All right, how about yourself?
Good. I'm happy to be here.
We've
Yeah,
learned
I'm
pretty
excited.
quickly not to give him raspberries.
Yes.
As a
Yes.
result.
Thank you.
You just give a little, and he's just like,
Yeah.
Feels
Yeah.
straight up.
right up. And with us today, a very special guest. You just heard his voice a little bit ago. Writer, actor, filmmaker, and overall awesome guy, Mr. Jason Belack. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I refute all of those allegations leveled against me.
It's not really what he said, but I mean, you'd like to get into that a little bit?
I'd like to plead the fifth a little, you know?
All right.
Yeah, no,
It's all recorded.
this is, so Jason and I, we met doing Shakespeare in the Park, back in 2014.
What were you
10
performing?
years ago, almost.
That was, about 10 years ago, actually.
What were you performing?
We were doing the Scottish play.
Yeah.
Macbeth?
Yeah.
I was there. I saw you both.
Yes, he was there.
I was the one they asked to leave because I was.
Just shouting.
Well, that was part of it, but yeah. But go on, Scottish play. You say?
Scottish play. EJ and I were among our fellow witches right there.
Yeah, with Al Snow, friend of the show.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then subsequently in Comedy of Errors and Julius Caesar together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at you guys.
Yeah, a little Shakespearean run. And then...
Wait, Shakespeare?
yeah, did
Who's
you...
that?
He's some hack from the
guy.
1600s.
Screenwriter. Screenwriter.
Oh, okay.
Screenwriter, but some
Most-
hack
mostly-
from the 1600s.
Gotcha.
Mostly gay jokes and cross-dressing.
He did. He wrote this movie in the '90s. They got Leonardo DiCaprio in it. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was called Romeo plus Juliet.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it was like about math. And
Yeah, I don't know.
it was pretty good.
All I recall of that was just an inordinate amount of hair gel.
Yes. That it also gave us the Cardigans "Love Me." So yeah, or "Love
that's
Fool."
true.
Yeah.
I love that.
The soundtrack is legit really,
Yeah,
really good.
awesome. Bush, I think, is on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, you know what's funny right now? The audience
Radiohead.
is saying, "Oh God, they're off track."
Joke's on you. We weren't on the track to begin with.
But
Take long.
Jason also wrote something, and I got to direct. The first time I got to direct like a short play, Jason wrote it. I directed it, and so
Yeah, it was actually a short screenplay that I had written, but adapted for stage that got put on at one of the local theaters, and EJ got to direct it. And I've done a couple of short films, directed a few short films, worked on a couple others, in various crew positions. So yeah, kind of deeply embroiled in the existential dread of being a creative individual, including 4 screenplays that are currently in various states of unfinishedness.
that's how it goes. Damn beat the brakes.
You never meet too many happy creatives.
No, you really don't.
They always look like they're on edge.
Yeah.
Like people ask me how I'm doing sometimes, and I'm like, I can't actually tell you.
I can't tell you.
So scary.
My favorite thing is when you tell people you're writing something, and they're always like, "Well, what's it about?" And you're like, "I don't know."
I'm a writer. You think I know?
You think I know how to explain
You don't
that?
think I know how to explain this?
That's a thing. Sometimes I feel like, well, what's it about? And you're just kind of like, because like when you're in the midst of it, it means so much.
You're just like,
That sigh of like, why the fuck did you just ask me that? That's
Why?
exactly. Anytime you write something and someone's like, "What's it about?" You go, I don't have to explain
Dude,
this.
I become a politician. Like I'm just kind of like, well, scripts are generally they're all like, the same in a lot of ways. There's
Yeah.
a plot. There's a main character. There's probably a bad guy.
Probably a bad guy. It's about conflict. Man versus nature, man versus man versus self, that sort of thing.
The character has some goals. He may or may not achieve them by the end of the third act.
Maybe, yeah.
And then they're just like, you don't know what it's about.
Not
So
a
you
goddamn
just
clue.
kind of leave.
Not a
I was gonna say, they're not even there at that point.
Hey, you know what else is
Just
really weird?
standing there talking to
Sometimes,
himself.
like, somebody will ask you, what do you want to do? And you're like, I'm into screenwriting, and they'll just kind of look at you like you're a failure.
My favorite response when somebody saw me, because when I lived in Seattle recently, and I used to spend a lot of time at a brew pub down there, and I used to write there. And somebody, somewhat jokingly saw me writing, and they're like, "Oh, you're writing a screenplay?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they did the usual, like, "What's it about?" and all this other stuff. And they saw that I had a beer and I was drinking and everything, and he goes, "Is this to come down off the cocaine?" And I just went. And I just looked at him and I'm like, I haven't actually had one option yet, so I can't afford cocaine.
So, all right, let's get into what movies have you checked out this week? Vince, anything new?
I saw.
I'm sure this is going to be a big surprise.
No, I did. I saw a movie.
What'd you see? The one we're covering today?
Besides the one we're covering today.
And I did some voluntary watching. I watched a movie, and just listen to this cast. Peter Dinklage, Max Greenfield, John Hamm, Dan Levy, Christian Slater, James Marsden, Hugh Grant, Jim Gaffigan, Bobby Moynihan, Dean Norris, Peter Dinklage,
He's in there twice.
Tony Hale, Cedric Yarborough, Cedric the Entertainer, Sebastian Maniscalco, and Fred Armisen. They were all in this
Jesus.
movie.
Is it Frosted?
Yeah, unfrosted.
Wow.
You didn't say Jerry Seinfeld?
Oh, I figured that would give it away.
We directed it.
He was in that?
Did you like it?
Damn it, he was in that. Okay, I loved it. Yes,
Yeah?
it was.
I didn't see it yet, but I
It
want to
was
watch
delightful.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
see it. I want to see it really bad.
Not like the last greatest comedy I've ever seen, but it was a nice. It was a Jerry Seinfeld flick. It was good.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, sir?
I've been continuing the Spider-Man Mondays. Yeah, I just went and saw the re-release of Amazing Spider-Man.
Hell yeah.
That's a movie I think gets a little better every time I watch it. You know?
Absolutely.
It is a weird one because I think Sam Raimi is one of our favorite filmmakers. So it's really hard to be the guy that has to follow up Sam Raimi, poor Mark Webb. But
Yeah.
I love Andrew Garfield. I think I love Andrew Garfield too much. We've talked about this.
We have talked
Yeah,
about this,
it's
and
unfortunate.
correct. You
How-
do love him too much.
How much I've expressed my love is
Yes.
unfortunate.
See,
But
The amount of times, yes.
But I saw that. It was a lot of fun. Packed theater. Everybody was into it, so I'm always a big fan of that.
Have you
That's
gone-
code for everybody at home. Don't talk during the movie because I hate you if you do it. And then we saw.
Have you gone to one and it hasn't been packed? I feel like every time you say you've gone,
they're,
it has.
they're all sold out. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
And everyone's there to see the movie. So they're really respectful and they're into it. But then we also saw the re-release of Phantom Menace.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
It was a lot of fun. It was really fun to watch everybody react to all the memes. Oh, and you know what? One other thing too. I'm just gonna say this on prequels. I think we should normalize leaving Jake Lloyd the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think he is really charming in that movie, and I'm
Yeah.
like, why is he considered a bad kid actor?
And like also the dude, he's doing a lot better in life now.
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
got so much hate when he was a kid, and I don't think that's anything that any kid, especially like a child actor, when you put yourself out there like that,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
Always fun of
just-
children is what.
don't be a dick to kids.
But I have opinions about movies, and I don't care.
it's
I
just
need
funny
people to
because-
know about them.
I was like paying it, just watching him, and it's
That's
like,
the guy. That's the guy that.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's not like reading the lines in a flat manner. It doesn't look like
Also,
he's reading from cue
who
cards.
wrote the script for him?
know.
Same shit with that they
yeah.
gave Hayden Christensen shit for. You can only do so much
I
with
actually think Hayden Christensen adapted what Jake Lloyd was just doing.
Yeah.
And
He
then
talked
by
about
the-
that at a Q&A that I went to.
Yeah, because in part 2, he has like a lot of Jake Lloyd's
mannerisms?
and stuff. And by the third one, he kind of made him more his own. So if you watch Anakin in the third one, he's very different from the second one.
Yeah.
But he's just maturing. He evolved the character.
So he's another one. Leave Hayden Christensen alone.
Yeah, leave him alone.
And then
I actually really like the fact that we've kind of gotten this critical reappraisal of Hayden Christensen over the years. Like, I will rag on like the Obi-Wan series about a lot of things, like whether we even needed this, but like Hayden Christensen getting to be not just Anakin Skywalker, but getting to be Darth Vader and actually doing like this really powerful, emotionally charged performance, especially in the very last episode of it. I'm like,
give me chills.
Yeah, like it just, I can get in chills right now just thinking about it. Like just the way that he's emoting out of just like one little part of his face.
Yeah.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. I'm like, oh,
Anakin is gone. Yeah, like
nightmare fuel.
Just you know, just that line, like Anakin is gone and I'm what remains, is just that's hard, man.
Yeah.
That was hard to like that had me just on edge the whole episode. And I was like, but
yeah.
Then just two other fast ones.
Yeah.
Becca, for our anniversary, she bought me the Criterion for The Princess Bride.
Oh, very cool.
Which I haven't seen in a very long time.
How
like
amazing
a very
is that
long
movie?
Time. It's fantastic.
It's
And-
like okay, right?
yeah.
it's, you know, sorry.
Don't you dare.
It's just like okay.
you.
That's inconceivable.
The remember we were doing that at the bar the one day.
We tried so hard.
We just kept using it incorrectly. And then last thing, because our anniversary is on May the 4th.
Yes,
We watched
yeah.
the original Star Wars, but the despecialized one, so I could actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
How about you, EJ? What'd you say?
Well, I got to see. I just watched The Man Who Laughs. It's been on my bucket
nice.
list of
Oh,
movies to
nice.
watch for the longest time, and
Where the Joker came from.
Yeah, loved it. Have you seen it?
Oh, like the long time ago.
Yeah, it's so.
What the hell was
so
that?
good.
What did you just say?
Oh, my mouth is in battle with itself.
That's maybe Rory having a stroke right there.
Yeah. And then I saw
The cut.
yeah, I saw The Challengers.
Okay.
Did you
I
see
wanted
that?
to see that. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Coming up
It's
this
really,
weekend,
really
I'm
good.
seeing it.
And then I watched a couple documentaries. One was called The Punk Singer. It's about Kathleen Hanna of Bikini Kills. It was awesome. And then the other one was called Filmage, about the Descendants and / All.
Okay.
They're a punk band from...
The Descendants, yes.
yeah, you know who they are,
Yes.
right? So do you know the drummer, Brian Stevenson?
No.
I didn't never realize this. Been a fan my whole life, right? Love the band, and I bought this documentary, and I was like watching it, and I'm watching him talk, and I'm watching him drum, and I go, man, just looking at him, he reminds me of somebody, and you know who he reminds me of, Vince?
The guy who?
You.
Why? Oh.
Seriously, no, he like the way he talks and like just the energy.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is so weird because he not only looks like you just a little bit, right? But then just like the way he talks and that energy and the fact that he's a drummer, I'm like, oh, this is like young Vince.
Wow.
I feel
He
like,
has the exact same reaction to raspberries, too.
I think he does.
Thank you.
But yeah, like for people who don't know, he started off in Descendants, and then he drummed for Black Flag for 5 years, and then went back and did like Descendants again and all, and but it was an awesome documentary.
I'm going to have to check that out.
I'm gonna check that out.
Was there like
check
any
it out.
scenes where he was putting up drywall?
I mean, he should have, but they talked about he was an avid fisher, and that's how
Really?
the band started. Was because he was on the docks and he met like this guitar player, and then he was a fan of this local band, and he was like, I want to learn how to play drums, and so those two formed Descendants.
I was going to say, I showed up to band practice with a guitar, and they were like, we don't need a guitar player, we need a drummer. I said, okay, you got drums?
That's a very like Ramones-esque
and then-
beginning.
And then I was like,
That's
okay, I'll play the drums.
exactly. That's him. I don't know. I feel like he might have a long lost brother out there. Yeah,
It's like
but-
the most punk thing ever. Just,
And Jay, how about you? What's some new stuff you watched recently?
oh boy. So actually, this was last week, I want to say, because I think I just got in there before they really kind of cut the shows down. But you know, continuing our horror movie trend, I actually went to see Abigail
Yes.
over the week, which was actually
Yes.
super fun as kind of a like a modern take on Dracula's daughter. Plus I'm a big Catherine Newton fan, so like she was in it. That's always cool. Giancarlo Esposito's in it, and I'm always down for anything he's in. Yeah, it was a very fun, very gore-soaked take on sort of that locked house kind of vampire genre with a couple interesting twists.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
What else?
It's a really good movie. I just don't think it ends well.
No,
the ending's a little wonky for me, but like everything leading up to that is
like it's such a fun ride that I can kind of forgive the sort of a little oddball ending.
I think Frank, that character, just like the ending, I was like, oh
yeah,
but
that was a little weird. And I'm gonna confess, actually. Actually rewatched RoboCop for the first time in about 5 years. Because every once in a while,
I feel like in about 5 years.
So it's funny. RoboCop's like one of my favorite movies,
and he's kind of upset about it too,
right?
Yeah, I love that movie.
No, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's just one of those things where like I don't really get to watch it unless I'm like I have a friend who hasn't seen it yet. Or like somebody who's like, oh, I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid or whatever. And I'll be like, come on over to my house. We're watching RoboCop.
Yeah.
I have the 20th anniversary or 30th anniversary Blu-ray. We're watching this. Let's go. So I got to watch that again. And that kind of led me down like the Paul Verhoeven rabbit hole where I rewatched like Total Recall and Starship Troopers.
Yes.
Gotta love it. And then I'm gonna make a confession that
Another one.
Yes, it actually took
two
me
confessions.
Two confessions. It actually took me this long to finally see Barbie.
Ooh.
Oh.
I literally just saw Barbie about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I adore it.
Me too.
It is.
Me too.
It is.
I loved it.
Funny.
I loved it.
It is poignant. It is bitingly social. Margot Robbie is just fantastic. Ryan Gosling is.
What a mess.
He's magic.
Right?
The boy can do no wrong.
The boy can do no wrong. Although I love that he's sort of like nestled into this role, this sort of
so
niche.
hard to look at. Yeah.
He's nestled into this sort of niche where like his go-to character is playing like facsimiles of human beings with emotional problems.
I love it. But yeah, and finally, the movie we all watched this week, maybe yesterday, maybe today.
I watched it. I don't remember watching it, though.
Oh,
Vince is actually watching a cell phone right now.
Yes.
Yeah. But the movie that brought us here together today is called It Follows. And this movie came out in 2016, right?
No, it's before that. It was like 2014, right?
2014.
2014,
Yep.
yep.
2014?
Which
This
doesn't
movie?
seem like 10
You watched the
years ago.
2016 version, didn't you?
Oh, no.
Oh, wait a minute. You watched...
He watched the Asylum version.
No, he watched It Swallows. It's about a bird who follows people around.
Yeah, and it goes, ooh.
I also watched a movie called It Swallows.
Yeah, I don't think we can talk about that one on this podcast.
So let's talk about the 2014 movie called It Follows.
Really afraid of clowns now.
So, first off, right out the gate, so Jason picked this movie, and I was pumped because I remember seeing this in theaters and loving it. Vince, what were your... So, not being a horror fan, right? First time watching this film, what did you think about it?
Good pick.
Yeah.
I loved the concept of it.
Yeah?
I found it really fun. I was like... I even told the missus, I was like, I think you would like this if you watch this. It had a very creepy element to it, and
Why are you
that's
packing your suitcase, honey? I think you like this movie.
No, I like the way that it had a flow to it, and it was an overall good movie. You know what I really liked is that weren't really many jump scares. It looked really cool, and the scariest scene, we'll get there, but I want to just say it now, is the dude standing on the house.
Yes.
Is
Really?
one of the scariest fucking things I've ever seen in a movie.
Do you know that's actually like not the thing following her? That's just like her I guess it's like her grandfather having a senior moment.
Pap! Pappy, get down.
Yeah.
Get down from there.
Damn it, Grandpa.
Get up there.
It makes more sense that it would be a grandfather because you're like, well, if you're a monster who's trying to follow somebody, don't go up on the roof.
On the roof.
Well, I think it was,
What?
obviously.
Explain it.
I think it was looking in its gutters, just in case.
The monster was, he's obviously concerned about killing this person, but, clearly just wants people to know that regular shingle maintenance is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I gotcha.
And Rory, how about you? What were your thoughts?
So, true story, I saw this in the theater when it first opened.
Yeah.
And I was a little indifferent about it.
Yeah.
And then when I was watching it last night, I loved it.
Yes.
Well, I won't say let me rephrase that. I didn't love it. I almost loved it.
Oh.
I was just
really?
about there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I love the score.
Is that how Becca feels?
Every day, yeah. She tells me that. She tells me that. She's like,
I was going to make
someday.
you made the joke before I did.
I have him say, Becca saying, I love you, Roy, and him going, I almost love you, Becca.
Well, no, what she says, she's very polite about it. She's like, one day this won't just be for show. But we'll find out.
That's great.
Maybe,
That's very nice.
possibly one day.
And you, so Jay, so what was it about this movie that you're like, yo, I want to cover this, and
So, I, like Rory, saw it, and you saw it when it came out, and it really kind of stuck with me because one of the things that I really love about it, and Vince touched on it, was that, it doesn't really have jump scares.
Right.
It really eschews a lot of the modern trappings of horror. It's different. It's for the most part, it's really brightly lit. It's not claustrophobically framed, which I actually think we'll get into a little bit because I have some thoughts about the way this movie was shot. But it's it's bright. It's open. There's a lot of wide angles and. It's such a refreshing take on the idea of a horror movie, and I love the fact that, barring one or two shots, the movie has virtually no special effects, at least obvious ones, because everything is just visual.
Yeah.
It's all in the camera. It's very natural. It's so mundane in its appearance that it becomes all the more horrific for me, and that's kind of what I love about it.
It's very Halloween-esque.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Carpenter-esque.
Yeah.
when you think of the way Haddonfield looks. in the
Right.
original
Oh,
Halloween,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Just this very boring town with
Detroit. Yeah.
It's a suburb of Detroit.
that could have been its own movie.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. I got thoughts on that.
Well, I think a lot of my favorite horror movies have been taken place in Detroit lately. And so it's this. I loved Don't Breathe.
Yeah, that was
Don't
a-
Breathe
that was
was
a great
great.
one.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
And man,
I mean,
Well, you
when
The
loved
Barbarian.
it. Oh.
The Barbarian.
Oh, Barbarian!
That
Yeah.
rocked.
So I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw
All took
Barbarian.
place in Detroit.
I saw Barbarian after I had moved to Seattle last year.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake of watching Barbarian sight unseen, knew nothing about the movie. Just people say, hey, watch it, it's great. And I watched it while I was staying at an Airbnb looking for an apartment, which was the worst fucking decision that I have ever made in my life.
Yeah. That's outstanding. Yeah, no, all these horror movies have been taking place in Detroit, and I'm like, maybe Detroit's a scary place.
I mean,
We're going
it
to
is
record an
Detroit.
episode from the filming locations of It Follows.
Detroit.
No,
And everything will be fine.
but I also love the music in this film.
The
I thought it
score
was
yes,
the
elevates
score-
the movie.
Yeah, it really does.
It's very remember when we went to that Alan Howarth concert?
Yeah,
It
hell
had
yeah.
that sort of Alan Howarth, John Carpenter.
When
Well,
I,
that's what I say.
vibe.
Once again, a Carpenter analogy there, because it's a lot of the score is very reminiscent of the sort of minimalist sort of Halloween stuff that he did on Halloween.
Halloween is very much an influence. There's literally a shot in the classroom where your main character looks out the window, and there's
Make a
there's the-
reference in my
yeah.
notes to it.
Yeah,
I got
yeah, yeah.
A very Laurie Strode moment.
Which, by the way, I mean, if that's what you're pulling from, there's nowhere better to
You
pull
could do
from.
worse. You could do
Halloween
a
is a
lot
masterpiece.
worse.
when I first heard the score of the movie, I was like, "What is this thing? Is this like an $8 Casio keyboard that they're playing this on?" And I was upset by it. But by the end of the movie, I was like, "That fits perfectly.
Yeah.
It's just so subtle and very. It fit perfectly. I thought.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, I think like a lot of the film, I think if the soundtrack was really like orchestral and overwrought,
It would have ruined it.
it would have just ruined it. That minimalist synth soundtrack just does a lot to hammer home what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Hell
what's
yes.
going on? It's in a sense like a reverse of the typical slasher rules, where
Right.
it's
Yeah,
like
kinda,
in
yeah.
the slasher movies, it's like if you don't have sex, you'll live. In this movie, if you have sex, you'll live a little longer.
A little longer.
You'll
Yeah.
prolong death.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a long death.
Yeah.
That's perfect, actually. But yeah, let's start breaking this down. So the film starts in a quiet neighborhood, and a girl is running from her house, and then she runs back in and jumps in the car to take off. And meanwhile, her dad's like trying to call her. And eventually we see where she's on a beach. She gets a call from her father, and she's apologizing to him and confessing, oh, I love you so much. I love you and Mom. I'm sorry for all the stuff I've done. And then it cuts to the very next day, and her body is just completely mangled. Like her legs look like they were like ripped apart and sticking up in the air, and like bones coming out of
Well,
it.
did you see the deleted scene for that?
No.
No,
This actually had nothing to do with the monster.
yeah.
So she was, no, really. She was actually
Tripped
the
into a
next
wood
day. This is true. The next day, she was actually trying out for the cheerleading team, and she was trying to turn her body into different letters, and things went south.
Oh,
You know?
okay, that makes sense.
That's why you have to have a team. You don't want to try those moves on your own.
I just
I
want
thought
to point
she was-
out that the kudos to the actress in this scene for like running full tilt in a pair of high heels.
Yeah.
And willing to break her leg like
Yeah,
that.
I mean that's some method shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some method stuff. But across town,
The actress actually quit acting after this movie. She was like, well,
But the
Well,
director
they're-
I
actually
don't want it that bad.
Yeah, the director actually killed 5 people during the course of this film.
first
Yeah.
film I ever made, I killed 5. Oh, wow, 5. You killed 5 people.
Yeah, I was on set.
I gotta
remember.
I mean,
Chris.
if we're talking about people that we've killed for films, does that include sacrifices before production begins?
Oh, for like good luck.
Yeah, like for good luck, or is that
They call
personally
They call
during
that
principle?
that's part of the pre-production process. Yeah.
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 So if we're only counting people that were killed during production.
During, yes.
Okay.
All right. So across town, we meet Jay, who is just swimming in her pool and chilling right before she goes on her date later that night.
She sees a squirrel. There's an
Yeah.
ant on her. You better believe those are going to be emojis later, assholes.
Hell yeah. And inside, her sister and friends, Paul and Yara, are chilling out watching an old movie, and that's Killers from Space.
Yeah.
Just in case you guys needed to know.
Hey, real quick before we bypass this.
Yeah.
So when she's in her pool, she's in like her bathing suit, and my mind immediately went to the 1920s as it normally does. I think they should bring back those like
One piece?
yeah, and like the swim caps.
Yeah.
Yeah, start putting those in modern movies.
There you
I
go.
agree.
Yeah.
It's a good look. I like that look. I
Yeah.
think it's cool.
I don't know. I just was watching it, and I'm like, 1920s. They had some pretty bulky bathing
Yeah.
suits.
I think personally, if we're going to the 1920s, we should bring back zoot suits and smoking in public
Yeah.
In a bathing suit.
in a bathing suit.
You're out here
What
doing
the-
the Charleston.
Listen, I just want to be able to go to a grocery store and buy heroin cough syrup. Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Good old days.
the good old days. But while inside, the friends are watching this movie, and we get a sense that Paul is definitely like attracted to Jay,
Jay.
and into Jay for
yeah.
sure, like 100%. Even just by like the glance he's like giving to her,
It's not subtle.
it's not
It's
subtle.
really not.
And even the friends are like, okay,
so
like,
It's got strong
whatever.
knee energy.
So
I like in these kind of movies when they're watching like films from like the 50s. It's like a bunch of like teenagers,
Yeah.
and you know that's just probably a movie the director likes. And he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, the kids they all watch these
Yeah, no, they don't.
B movies from the 50s.
well, technically, if that was us,
We would-
in our
we
teens,
would've,
we
yeah.
would.
we would be watching.
That's true. That's true.
One of the things that I actually
I'm
really,
sorry, director, if you're listening to this at home.
He's
one of the
not.
things that I actually kind of really liked about the setup for this film, the way the world building happens, is that the film's weirdly like timeless.
Yeah.
Because like the one character has like a weird smartphone looking thing.
I wrote,
Yeah.
fuck that clamshell looking
Yeah,
thing.
the fucking clamshell looking thing. But like, all of the cars are either like old, or they're like from some nebulous like late 90s, early 2000s ish period. Like all the TVs are these old CRTs. Like, it's this weirdly like atemporal setting where like it could happen sort of anywhere.
My film teacher told us that. He's like, when you're writing your scripts, he's like, don't date it. Like, don't have there be like too many references to like modern songs or like looks of the time, because he's like, in 10 years it's gonna look weird.
Yeah.
It's always stayed with me. So like, kind of making it look that way was probably a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I think it's a cool choice, because you're right. You don't know if this is taking place in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s.
2000s,
Like, it really
yeah.
is. It has like a weird timeless appeal to it.
Yeah.
And visuals too.
Yeah.
Because even like the way they dress, it doesn't have like, Paul kind of dresses like he's like the neighbor from the Wonder Years.
Paul.
Or he's, no, his style at certain points is guy at Walmart at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
He's got like this pajama pants on. He's just-
It's just like, hey, what's
Well,
up?
I actually have some interesting, I don't know, we may get into it later, but I actually have some interesting thoughts about the costuming of this movie and how it kind of ties into a lot of what's happening in the film. I don't know if we want to talk about that now or...
Get into it.
Go for it.
So one of the things that I noticed, and spoiler alert, there's a monster. The monster, I noticed as I was watching the film again, has a really specific color palette. It's very pale. It's very white. Like, I actually went through, after I watched it, and found all the spots where you definitely see the monster, parts where it might be the monster. And the monster always seems to adhere to like a couple of visual rules. It's always either very pale or white. Like when the few times the monster shows up and it's naked, it's always this very pale, very
Like
ashy,
a gray body.
like a gray body, or it's always wearing white clothing. Like it's always a white t-shirt
Yeah.
or a white dress, or the old woman in a hospital gown. But there's always some kind of dark spot somewhere. Like the really tall guy, he's
Giant man.
Giant man has these like very dark
White
almost
shirt.
like eyeshadow sort of
Yeah.
thing. The guy
kid.
on the kid. The woman who first appears to Jay in the kitchen with the white socks. She's got that sort of dark hair and very like dirty kind of appearance. But even the guy on the roof, like the naked guy on the roof, like very clearly in the crotchular region.
Yeah.
You know,
Crotulary.
and it always seems like there's an intimation, like there's a hint of some kind of violent end when like some
That's
kind
what I
of
was thinking
violence
too when I
in
was
the
watching
monster.
it.
But
Yeah.
interesting thought is that anybody who's been exposed to the monster, we don't see it in Hugh, the boyfriend, when we first meet him, because it's kind of a dodge. But when you see him again later in the movie, he's wearing the same color palette. And then when after Jay's encounter, a lot of her scenes, especially scenes where she's getting stalked or attacked by the monster, she's also wearing white.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's really cool. I didn't even notice that.
I didn't
I
notice that.
definitely noticed the monster,
Yeah.
the white, costuming
Yeah.
parts, but I didn't notice the actual people, the victims, or future victims wearing white as well.
Yeah.
That's
I
pretty
did
interesting.
notice that it did look like all the people coming for her all looked like they met some sort of like violence and
or at the very least had been like subjected
Sexually,
to
yeah.
violence. Well, yeah, I mean the movie has a pretty strong, and I don't think this is going to surprise anybody with the way the movie goes. It's got a very strong sexual overtone.
sure
Yeah, absolutely. So,
should have been called Doing It Follows.
yeah, doom two chicks at the same time.
Oh
So
It follows in the butt.
that night, Jay and her date, his name is Hugh, and they're at the theater about to catch a movie.
Hugh.
And they start playing this game that Jay brings up, and it's about switching places with a complete stranger. So she's like, okay, look around, pick a stranger, and you and that person would switch places. Who do you pick? And so he looks around, and he's like, okay, got it. So she tries to guess. She doesn't guess right. So eventually he's like, I'd pick that kid because he has his whole life ahead of him.
I also think because that kid probably represents like innocence.
Yeah.
Well,
You
yeah,
know
I
what I
think
mean, like prior to, you know.
Yeah, there's a very strong sense that, knowing, at the time, you could take that at surface at just face value. Like, yeah, being a kid's kind of awesome because you don't have to worry about stuff. Like, you got to go to school.
You're not thinking
but, like,
about sex.
You're not thinking about
kind of what led him
sex
into
or whatever else led him
Yeah.
into it. You don't really think about the future. You just kind of go,
Hey, I gotta
I can't
keep my
wait.
pants.
Can't wait to get home in color.
yeah.
Also, real quick thing, I like that they're seeing Charade.
Yes.
It is the absolute best Hitchcock movie that Hitchcock didn't direct. But it's got all the hallmarks of one. I've had people say it to me before. They're like,
Well,
"You know,
and
my
I-
favorite Hitchcock movie is Charade." I'm
Charade.
like, "Well, he didn't do that."
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
I also love that
shake
theater
them.
that they're in. Like,
Yeah,
just
it's
as
so
a
cool.
side, just that theater is so gorgeous. Like,
Yeah,
I want to go to
so
it
good.
and watch movies.
I said that to Becca last night. I'm like, "Why doesn't that theater exist?"
And it
Right
has
here.
an organ there
Yeah.
because of like the silent films that they would show. Like they would have a person
They
playing.
should bring that kind of stuff back.
That is so cool.
Every once in a while, you see somebody do something like it, but I wish it was something a bit more regular.
Yeah, that place in Phoenixville.
Oh, yeah.
Something like I know they showed the Metropolis, and they had like an actual orchestra.
Shut up.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Rad,
oh
right?
my god. That's amazing.
still one
I
of
heard they
my-
just showed Harold and Maude.
I know. How old are you?
I know. I wish I got to see that. So they're playing this game, and then she's like, okay, I want you go ahead. Like, I want you to guess who I pick. So she looks around. They're like sitting in the theater now, and so she looks to the left, and then she looks to the right. She's like, okay, I got it. And so he's like looking around. He's like, the girl in the yellow dress, and she's like, who? He's like, the girl in the yellow dress standing right back there. She's like, who are you talking about? And it's clear, like, he doesn't see, or he sees this person,
Yeah.
and she doesn't. And then he's like, oh, I don't feel well. Let's get out of here. And so they actually get up, and they leave the theater, and they go driving, and then they eventually stop at a restaurant, and they're eating and stuff. And you could just tell, like, he's like, freaked out that she saw something.
Because the girl he just slept with is running into him on a new date.
Yeah.
That might have something to do with
Might
it.
have something.
Yeah.
Might have something. To do
So,
with it.
I like that feeling of dread that
Yeah.
they have in something as simple as them just like sitting, probably having coffee.
Coffee.
right.
Yeah.
And then in the background, you see, like,
Well,
just a person.
I love stuff like that in
What
horror
I-
films when there's not like a loud like sting. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
it's
What
just
I-
kind of like it's understated and it makes it creepier.
So, go ahead, bud.
So what drives me nuts about this movie in the best possible way is how anxiety-inducing every background shot in this fucking movie is.
Yeah.
Because once you understand what's going on, like every time they cut to a wide, and a lot of this movie is wide. It's like there's a real dearth of close-ups in the film.
There's something so creepy about a person who can see something that you can't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then they don't and again, this movie is smart enough not to have there be like a real quick like you know what I mean, like an intercut where
Yeah.
it's just kind of like you see some scary looking girl.
Or something.
It's
but-
just don't show it.
Well, one of that moment in the theater was I got creeped out the first time I saw it because it cuts. There's that insert from her POV where it's the door, but there's nothing there. It's just an empty door, and I'm just like, I don't know what's worse. Yeah, like you have to wonder like what's worse. What's worse is seeing, a scary monster or not seeing anything.
I don't want to stay too long on this thing, but
Yeah.
you know,
I
like the
just want to touch on one thing, too.
the first Conjuring.
Yeah.
So the scariest thing in that movie is when that little girl is like pointing to the shadows, and she just looks horrified.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they never show you what it is. I mean, I guess eventually they do. It's a Bathsheba.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is silly. But like when she's just pointing in the darkness and she looks terrified and there's tears coming down her face.
That's scary.
It's so scary. Sometimes what you don't see, the theater of the mind, as we say,
Yes.
Yes.
is far more frightening than just like them cutting to some
The unknown.
pale, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too. To touch on what Jay was saying, the wide shots. The brilliance of using the wide shots is creating this empty vastness, right? Like
It can come from anywhere.
come from any direction, and so like you're just ready like your eyes are like constantly like going back and forth. The paranoia is just like all around. So I think
if
this
they
is the
close
brilliant
that
part.
frame up a little bit, then
Yeah.
it's like you have more
You have
control
more
over
over
what you
what you
see.
Yeah,
And
So
and
it's
the
like
fact
those
that,
wide shots are a brilliant
And
choice.
I love the
I
fact that
agree.
the frame in the wides are never completely empty. Like the director makes a point of doing a lot of circular movement to cover the entire scene, to show
Rotating
you-
so you can see the surroundings.
You can
yeah.
see that there's a lot of people in here,
and
so
then
you never know where this thing is going to come from.
What's really cool too is that sometimes whatever it is that you're supposed to be afraid of, and those times where like the camera kind of does that rotational thing, sometimes you actually see the thing approaching in the far background, and they just move away
Move
from
past
it.
Glance
like
from
it's
So you're
nothing.
just like
no
getting this sense of dread because the camera is eventually going to go back in that circular motion, and you're going to come back to that window, and you're like, is it going to be right up to the window? Where is it? It's very effective.
And I also love that it always is wide, but it always does feel like the camera's moving, so it does have like that very slow zooming in, almost like the monster kind
It's
of
closing in on you?
Closing in.
Yeah.
What I also
All right.
love too is that those dollies never get when the camera dollies in, it never gets super close. Like it always feels like it's when you
arm's reach.
go from so like when you edit when you edit a film together, sort of the dictum is you start wide with establishing shots, and then you do your close-ups, like your over the shoulders or your one shots, and you cut when people are having dialogue. And the idea is that you're building tension by constantly getting a little bit closer and closer and closer, and then you go wide again for a release. What I think is kind of interesting about the way this movie is shot is that there's these long, slow dollies that never quite get close enough, so it always feels like you're on the verge of something, and then it just pulls back, and then it goes in, and then it pulls back, and then it does go into an insert of something really close up. And it's funny that those inserts are the thing that takes the edge off of a thing. That's the pressure release, because then we're just looking at somebody's hand, and it's not, where's the monster? What's happening? Where's this thing? And then we go wide again, and that's when our tension starts.
Yeah.
Neato. Go ahead.
No, I do feel like there is like this pulsating motion, right?
Yeah.
Which is later on when we do see the creature actually attacking, it does feel like a pulsating, attack.
Yeah.
And I will say that.
I'll give my 2 cents and then we'll keep rolling. Once we get to her being chased, I feel like there's even starting at the movie theater, there's stakes in every single scene. Like every scene from now until the end of the movie, you always feel the pressure of something is coming for me. And I feel like from that till the end of the movie, it carries that feeling throughout the entire thing, which I thought was great.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
that's just fantastic screenwriting right there. In my opinion.
And there's one problem with the script, though. One small problem with the script. I think Hugh, his last name should have been Jazz.
What a huge ass.
That's in my notes,
A huge ass.
and I'm proud of it. Moving on.
So the next day, Jay goes for a walk with her sister, and they're discussing the date with Hugh and him being a little strange. And we catch that their neighbor, he's just like washing his car, but also exchanging, glances with Jay. And you don't know if there's like maybe a little bit of like an attraction there. We don't really know, but you do sense like they
There's
have something.
Yeah.
Clearly, although he's clearly in a committed relationship with his station wagon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Shaggin' wagon.
Yeah.
And that night, Hugh and Jay, they go and they are hooking up in the back of his car. And afterwards, Hugh chloroforms Jay, and so they hook up. And she's like telling this nice story, and then all of a sudden he just like chloroforms her, and she wakes up and she's like pretty much tied down to like a wheelchair.
It would have been funny if it cut and she woke up the next day and there was just a note that said, "I didn't want to listen to the rest of your story."
I knew something.
I actually really love the way that scene is put together too, because
It was nice of him to chloroform her.
it was nice.
Yeah, it was lovely.
No, it's honestly it was. If you think about it, because I almost feel like he gets a sense of she was willing, so this is going to happen. He chloroforms her to provide safety to her. He's going to now strap her down and be like, no, this is what you're in for. I could just let them come and get you, and I'll move on to the next girl and pass the thing on.
You could describe it as tough love.
I guess,
Kind of,
but you
yeah.
know what I mean? I think he's trying to be helpful to her.
No, he is. Because he's basically like saying like, at one
This is
point,
what's happening.
Yeah, like this, I just need you to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then
because
he
you
gets
probably
her out of
wouldn't
there.
listen to me
It had-
if
yeah.
I tried to
Yeah.
explain to you. You'd probably be like, well, fuck this guy, and you would leave. He's like, I need you to see what is coming after you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think there's a moment, there's a kind of tenderness in the way he approaches it too, because it's not like, you know, your standard like jump from behind and grab somebody, and you know, like obviously there's an inherent violence in the act, but he approaches it with this sort of calm, like, you know, the scene kind of fakes you out because he kind of, you know, goes around the car, he gives her a beer, like, you know, kind of snuggles up on top of her, like you can read that as predatory, but like in the hindsight of what's going on in the film, it really does feel like this is kind of in his mind he's trying to do her a favor by bringing her to a safe space and saying, like, this is-
Even though he is completely responsible
He's
for the
absolutely
situation.
for everything he did.
Let's not lose sight of the fact that he's an asshole.
Yeah, with
still a
with
huge
that
ass.
being said,
He's a huge ass.
I mean,
Dude, come
yeah.
on. You deserve
Good
a
work.
high five for that.
all right, with that being said, Frequels does not condone ethering any women or any men for that matter.
We just
Yeah.
did that to each other on the show.
I mean, unless
that would be
it's
so much fun.
unless it's
Just ether and bath salts.
unless it's
Jesus.
consensual, in which case, you know, you do you, but
Yeah.
There was an episode where we all did at the same time to each other, and the episode was like 4 hours long. You just heard us snoring.
We only had 10 minutes of tape.
Yeah.
So Hugh tells her that there's a thing that is going to follow her, and it won't stop. It was given to him, and now the curse has now passed to her, and the thing looks like people she may know, or complete strangers, or people that are from her past that is specifically to hurt her, right? And that comes into play later on. So as he's like telling her all this, he's like on the lookout. He keeps looking around, and he's like, there it is. So he grabs her and he like takes her up so she could see it herself. And you just see this like naked thing,
Ominous lady.
ominous
Yeah.
lady.
like walking, and then he kind of lays out a couple more of the rules. He's like, just it's slow. You
Yeah.
can outrun it, but it is smart. So just
It
be
never
ready.
stops, yeah.
Yeah,
never
and
stops.
it just never will stop coming for you.
It's an STD that he
yeah,
gave her.
right. And so
I'm
he's
actually
like,
going to kind of fight you on that a little bit, but I feel like that's a later discussion.
but yeah, he basically is like, listen, you have this now, and the
These are your
best thing
options.
you could do, just pass it to the next person
Yeah.
and just keep running.
I'm a little confused by something with. I mean, I understand this is probably not something I should think too much about.
Yeah, don't.
But like, what's this thing's end game? Like, if it kills everybody, doesn't it in itself die?
Yeah, I think you're putting too much thought into that.
But seriously,
Yeah. Well, no, I bet I think it just
does
like
it win?
it probably will always go.
Where did it come from?
Where did it go?
I think
Where
we
did it
finally
come from?
I think we finally unraveled the mystery of Cotton Eye Joe here.
Yeah. Moving on.
But so as it is approaching, he's like, listen, if it kills you, it's gonna come right back to me. Whoever you pass it on and they die, it's gonna go right back to you. So he puts her in a car, and they take off, and then we cut to Jane and her friends. They're all kind of hanging out on the porch.
Are they playing Old Maid?
They are.
Yeah, they're playing cards. Yeah,
It's like a
They're
deck
playing
from
Old
like
Maid.
the 20s.
yeah.
It was
Which is
recovered
actu-
from the Titanic.
Which is actually
1912
another
deck.
which is actually another interesting thing that I noticed about the movie, because the movie on at least two separate occasions makes sort of that Old Maid reference, because they're clearly playing Old Maid in the, you know, they're in it can't not be intentional with the prominence of the Old Maid card. But the other thing that I think is interesting, we're going to get to it later, like when they get to Hugh's house, all of the windows are plastered over, and there's very clearly a you can very clearly say the name Miss Grundy on one of the comic strips that they're using that he used to plaster over the walls.
Is that a Riverdale thing?
That is a Riverdale thing, but
Yes.
the interesting part was the name Miss Grundy.
I learned that from EJ.
Right?
Yes.
The interesting part is that the name Miss Grundy is actually from an old slang word for a prudish older woman. So I think there's some interesting things to talk about on that one.
Okay. See,
I
that
see
makes
you're
sense.
like an L Snow over there.
Right? So,
You gotta understand, your hosts here. We're all pretty stupid. We don't know stuff.
we don't know
I'm like,
shit.
I know stuff from Riverdale because of EJ.
I mean, that might
EJ
be
let me
the,
watch him.
that might be the most
funny books.
that might be the most pedantic bit of knowledge that I have. It's all pretty surface level from here on out, guys.
Shallow.
Downhill.
Blew my load a little early.
Yeah. So that's when Jay gets home, and basically Hugh drops her off right in the middle of the street. Nicely.
Dumps her.
Yeah, he just dumps her and takes off. He's like, "Don't let it touch you." And
Speeds off.
takes off. And they're like,
Seems like
What?
a pretty standard Tinder date. I don't know.
"The hell was that?"
That's how my last one ended.
Yeah. So the cops arrive and they start questioning Jay, asking her about Hugh, and it turns out he gave like a fake name and an address and stuff. 'cause
She
they-
should have known. Huge ass.
Yeah,
No, that's
Hugh
a dead
Jass?
giveaway. Dead
Come on,
giveaway.
man.
She's like, well, my
Seymour-
last boyfriend, Seymour Butts, he also took off.
There was that girl she briefly dated, Amanda Hug and Kiss.
Amanda Hug and Kiss.
Jay just keeps falling for these people.
Oh, snoot. So in class, the next, after a little bit, in class, Jay has a very Laurie Strode moment
yeah.
when she looks out the window, noticing a thing, which is this old person in a hospital gown, and it's slowly walking across the campus towards her, making its way eventually into the hallways. And she's almost in maybe like 10 feet away from it. And then she's like, okay, well, no one else is seeing this. Because she's like, hey, are you seeing this lady? And they're like, what are you talking about? And then she's
They
like,
were just
okay.
pretending they
Yeah.
didn't because her back of her dress was open.
Yeah, they're like, oh,
we don't see anything.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that hallway scene kind of gave me some Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
For sure.
A little bit.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
very like weird cross between Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, I think.
Yeah. And so,
Which again, great source.
If
to
you're
pull
gonna,
from.
if you're gonna pull sources, that's a good place to pull it
Yeah.
from.
well, yeah, Quentin Tarantino, I think, always says, he's like, yeah, I just steal stuff all the time, and I just get credit. Like,
You know-
good artists steal stuff, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
well, I
what
mean,
they
Yeah,
say. I guess.
that's what they say, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can come up with your own shit.
Or yeah, but so Jade goes to tell her sister Kelly and Paul, and she starts to tell them at the ice cream shop about Hugh's warning, and Paul eagerly volunteers to stay over. He's like, hey, I could stay over tonight if you want. And I love
What?
that the two sisters immediately
I'm not secretly
go,
gonna take
no.
pictures of your feet.
Yeah. I love how the two sisters immediately are like, no.
Bad idea.
But
don't like this.
eventually, they're like, okay, yeah, you could stay over, but you could stay on the couch. He's like, okay, sounds good. I'll be there.
Leave your
I'll take
camera at home.
wherever you want me
Paul.
to stay. I'll do it.
Yeah. So,
I like that they gave her some ice cream though.
That is
yeah,
true.
that was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
That's nice.
I
Take the
zeroed
edge
in
off.
on that, yeah. Because at this point, she's
Yeah.
a blue jay.
Oh.
That's another one of my emojis later on. Sneak peek.
A blue jay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So
I
that
got
night,
emojis, guys.
Jay visits Paul on the couch, and she can't sleep. She's having a hard time sleeping. And I like that they have a TV on top of a broken TV setup.
Yeah, it's literally like answering the question, "What's on TV tonight?" TV.
TV. Why wasn't that a joke in this movie?
I don't know. Isn't it? It's
That's-
right there.
It's right
right
there.
there.
It's too literal.
But they start to reminisce about
It's
their
like a
child.
TV on a TV.
Yeah.
hat
Oh
on
yeah,
a
it's a hat and a hat. So they start to reminisce on their childhood and their first kiss and how he eventually kissed her sister Kelly.
So
too.
this part here, I don't know if anyone else got these vibes, but it felt like this stuff probably really happened in the writer's life. He seemed
yeah.
very awfully specific.
Yeah.
You know, probably knew like a some friends, the brother kissed the sister, stuff like that.
Yeah. And he's like,
That's
weird
one of those
dialogue.
things. Yeah, that's
Okay.
one of those things that is so specific that is like that happened.
Yeah.
That's something.
He's putting
from
his own
real
life into it.
it's like, fuck Paul, man. I'm gonna fuck his life.
Or
I want everyone to know Paul.
or he was Paul.
Paul's
Or
watching.
he was Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a confessional.
Yeah. So,
Kissing your sister, it follows.
it follows. Then they hear this noise in the kitchen, and it's the window smashes. So Paul goes to check it out first, and there's no one there. So he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go tell your sister." Right?
Great idea.
Yeah, she's. So
I like
he
how
goes
he's like-
upstairs.
I like how he's like, somebody definitely threw something through the window.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
I'm gonna
I
go tell
guarantee
your
it.
sister upstairs.
I'm gonna go upstairs.
I'm
Leave
just
me
gonna
alone.
leave you here in the room by yourself.
Something broke a window downstairs. I'm gonna go upstairs. You'll be okay here.
You'll be fine. Don't worry. I'll tell your sister. So
Can I come with you? No, you
no.
stay there.
Jay,
Wait.
I insist. You stay there.
You stay in that enclosed room where there's nowhere to run.
I could also yell up to your sister and ask her to come downstairs. No,
The ability
no.
to do that.
I don't want to wake up Yara, so I might as well just go upstairs.
Yara had a really long night.
I could also use my clamshell and text her.
I would say Yara was she's real tired from reading that stupid fucking clam shit.
Yeah.
So Jade checks out the kitchen and he runs upstairs. So Paul runs upstairs. So Jade goes and she's looking around in the kitchen, and that's when she sees Kat Dennings. The thing that looks a lot like a Kmart Kat Dennings. But we see the thing and it's like peeing itself.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little bit. That actually kind of.
Oh, you have an explanation for this. Good.
It's a PJ party.
No, actually,
So it got there. It's all there.
so
It's all
that scene actually to me reminded me so much of Fede. The same scene. Like there's a almost identical shot in Fede Alvarez's remake of Evil Dead.
Oh sure.
Oh,
And I'm wondering,
100%.
if they saw that and thought that it was, like, and the director's like,
Yeah, let's have her pee.
I don't think there was anything more superficial than like
that's
that's kind of that's kind of a, it's transgressive. Like it's transgressive. There's a little bit of gross sort of body horror in that because it's weird because it's a weird shot because nothing else like that happens in the rest of the movie.
So Mr. Alvarez, you might have a check coming your way.
Coming your way.
Yeah, you should look into that. Hey, so real quick, when she sees the Kat Dennings,
Yes. Good to see her back.
it was at that point that I started to wish that a very serious-looking baby would follow her around for a little while. Wouldn't that really make this movie something special if there's just a real serious-looking baby crawling after her?
And it has a little wobble
Yeah.
as it goes.
That looks real mad.
Yeah.
It's
Little
like
angry
adorably
crawler.
terrifying.
It's like how I see Vince sometimes.
That's where I was getting to.
I'm a child.
So, I'm a child.
And just for all you other children out there, transgressive means involving a violation of moral or social boundaries. I did not know that word. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I will try to use smaller words now.
Hold on, let me go get the crayons.
For young Vince's sake.
Still trying to think
Not
of the
me
other.
or Rory. We're cool. We
read books.
we read words.
We read Riverdale comics.
We know words.
If you guys need me to Google anything later, just let me know.
I'm always so tempted to say River Dudes.
River dudes.
I know, right?
I'm always every time I say Riverdale, I'm like Riverdale.
River Dale.
Hey,
If it makes you feel
EJ
any better.
Leeson used to be on a podcast called River Dudes with our buddy Ross Jones. If you'd like to listen to some past episodes and listen, just embarrass himself.
Yeah.
You can see it
Where I
wherever
just
you listen to your.
geek out about Archie comics.
Yeah.
That was that
loved
animated
Archie
series,
comics.
right?
Yeah.
What's that?
That was that animated series, right?
No, that was the.
No, it's a
live
callback
action
to our very first episode.
You son of a bitch.
We're at that point now with this show where we can do callbacks. All right.
Callbacks all the
Wait,
time.
I can recycle jokes.
I've been, dude. What are you doing? Catch up.
We should do a clip show next week.
Callbacks. Yeah. Clip show.
Really phone it in.
Yeah.
Hey,
5
young
minutes
bitch,
of-
remember the time when?
5 minutes of new content followed by nothing but rehashes.
Yeah.
I love those episodes on
Hey,
Friends.
yeah. Hey EJ, remember the time when we were talking about, and then we cut into something?
Yeah.
That's real lazy.
I think if you do that, Seth MacFarlane's going to want to check.
Like Family Guy callbacks. Yeah.
So we see where she runs upstairs to her room and locks the door, and she's telling Paul and Kelly, don't open the door. Then they hear someone like trying like the knob, turning it and stuff, and then they hear Yara's voice, and so they're like, oh, it's just Yara, let's open it. So when they open it, they see Yara, and behind her just out comes this giant man. Yeah,
Who's fantastic. Scary as hell.
I love it.
It was scary as hell.
Yeah.
See, he reminded me of that super tall guy in The Simpsons. You find something comical about my automobile?
This happens to be the largest automobile I could afford. I'm not gonna lie to you. I also like seeing tall people representation in films. So
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
There are
How
dozens of
tall
us.
are you, just for the audience at home?
just for the listeners at home, I am 6'8".
6'8".
Wow.
Holy shit! Yeah.
Shit, I'm gonna have to look up to him. I don't like that.
6'8".
Yeah.
You're almost kaiju status.
I am almost kaiju status.
Being tall is overrated, isn't it? All I have to say is this: airplanes.
Airplanes.
That's it. That's all I have to say. Airplanes. The fucking worst.
Buses.
Generally anything with people around.
Anything
you.
with people
How tall
around
are you?
it.
You're 6'2".
I'm 6'3".
6'3".
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm about 4'2".
I used to have a lot of stories about being tall, but all of the cranial trauma has pretty much wiped them from my brain.
I feel like though you're tall, all your stories are going to be about you being tall.
Surprisingly, yes.
And you might call them tall tales.
They are tall.
Tall
Yes.
tales. Perfect.
Moving on.
So Jay freaks out and makes a run for it, hopping onto the porch and hops down onto a kid's bike and just takes off. Eventually, stopping at a park to get her swing in. I guess
Gotta relax,
she stops
man.
and sits
Yeah,
on the swings and. But eventually, she sees her friends and she's ready to book again. She thinks it's the creature.
Yeah.
So, but then she notices they're running and they're all yelling her names. So she's like, "Oh, okay,
All right.
these are my friends."
I gotta tell you, I really appreciate this monster. Like, I feel like it's got a little bit of me in there because it's just a monster. It just takes its time. It just walks. It's just like, I ain't in a fucking hurry, man. Like, I'll get there when I get there.
It's the equivalent of a Hobbit
Yeah.
going to Mount Doom.
Yeah, it's fine. It'll get there when it gets. It's just,
We have time.
I got
Yeah.
time.
We have
need to
2
rush.
more books.
I mean, technically, when you think about it, for like a monster, they're dead, right?
right?
Or like it's a supernatural.
Like, there's
entity.
no
It
like, it's
doesn't
like, oh, I
really
gotta
age.
hurry up.
Yeah.
You don't have to hurry when you're
Yeah,
in
just-
the afterlife. Take your time. She's the one who's got to worry about time.
Yeah.
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 Fuck it. I'm just gonna take a nice leisurely stroll to my supernatural horror victims. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty common, though. I mean, Michael Myers doesn't exactly
yeah,
have
not a
brisk
really
gait.
runner. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
like,
same
you
with
know.
Jason. Jason.
Yeah,
Is
Jason-
Jason
He's
sometimes
kind of,
has a little bit of a...
He's got a little bit of a run, but mostly
Yeah.
he does the the head turn, body turn, just kind of slow, deliberate walk. I mean, like honestly, like the fastest ones are probably like the Cenobites from Hellraiser because they're just kind of always there. You know.
They should make a horror
They don't
villain.
run or walk; they glide.
Yeah, they glide.
They should literally make a horror villain that's like an Olympian. How scary would that be?
Like Usain Bolt.
Yeah, like he pole vaults you through the chest and you know?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
You're like trying to run away and there's just no way.
The movie would be over in like 10 minutes.
Olympian.
Unless the victims / other cast members were also Olympians, and it was the ghost of a dead Olympic decathlete.
All right,
all right.
I'm gonna start.
So
writing
let's pitch
down.
this. Okay, so we got a decathlon team. Okay.
Let's. I'm gonna call that 6 rings for now. So
Put a pin in it.
and so their neighbor Greg, he actually comes along too, and he's like asking if she's okay, like what's going on, and so they're all in the park, and eventually he's like, all right, well, let me go get my car, and I'll be right back.
Hey, in my notes it says Greg looks like he isn't good at anything.
He looks like pizza delivery guy is probably the most aspirational career that he can have.
Yeah, like high school is
Yeah.
where he peaks in
Yeah.
life.
high school's over. He's in college now. Guys.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's,
Jesus.
he looks like a dude who
Barely got into community college.
Barely skates by a community college.
Just hanging out with the high school
Yeah.
kids because they're like, well, he's a little older, so I guess that makes him cool
He's
in
like
teenager speak.
cool because he could buy us beer now
Yeah.
or something.
I saw
like,
him eat a cheeseburger, and I was pretty impressed by that.
Hey, speaking of cheeseburgers, come on down to 3 Jacks.
Yeah.
dude, he's got a station wagon and long hair.
Wow.
I'm in.
He's like Michael Kelso.
Who?
I combined 2 characters from that 70s show to
There
make
you
one
go.
joke. We got
So they go, they get his station wagon, and they set off to look for Hugh.
EJ, her name is Sheila.
Sheila. Yeah. Her name is
Station
Sheila.
wagon's name is Sheila.
So they go to the abandoned house where they suspect Hugh was living and stuff. And when they get in there, they find some soda cans strung up by different entrances and windows and
A booby
stuff.
trapped house. Wait, I couldn't get that out. Booby trapped house.
Yeah, it's like an alert
Yeah.
system
Yeah.
An alarm
in case
system.
anything like...
Yeah.
Some
Tries to
Home
get in.
Alone level
Tries to
shit
get in.
right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
EJ, his
Level.
conversational skills are coming along.
I know. Good job, young Vince. Good job.
Have a treat.
Here, buddy.
Would you like a Vinci snack?
Always.
Always. We should get Vinci snacks. That's a t-shirt.
That's code for drugs.
or a magnet.
I was gonna say that's code for beer.
Yeah, sippy
Yeah.
cup. Oh, speaking of which, you want a sippy cup? You good?
Yeah, I'm
Let's do
good.
this.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
So they find... Eventually, Paul, the gentleman that he is, finds some pornographic magazines and is like, I gotta look through all these.
I love the
Are you gonna comment on it? I feel like
dressing of the dirty tissues on top.
Okay, I'm glad you addressed it because I was just like, man, he just bats them off. I wouldn't touch those
I wouldn't
napkins.
Yeah.
touch those. I wouldn't touch those because you're like, you know where that's been.
Yeah, you know what's in there.
Yeah, that's literally like a masturbation station. Paul just and makes himself at home.
That totally sounds like a 70s porn. Masturbation station.
That sounds like awful Thomas the Tank Engine slash.
Masturbation, what's your station? I should stop. All right, so and then so they find a photo of him because I guess Paul was trying to, or what's his name? Hugh was trying to keep a bookmark, so he's like, I'm going to use this old photograph of me as a bookmark so I remember where I left off in this porn mag.
Maybe if somebody, needs a clue later on.
Yeah.
He likes to move chronologically through the magazine.
He doesn't want to have to start at the beginning every time.
Right. So he's like, you know what?
He doesn't like
I left
sticky
off
pages.
It's too much work.
Yeah. I'm going to use this old photo of me and put it right there. All right.
Oh my.
Masturbation station. I'll see you
Here I
tomorrow.
come. Masturbation station, here I come.
That's like the tagline.
That's the tagline. So they find this photo, and in the photo, Hugh is wearing a Letterman jacket, which they recognize as a school Lawson. And so they try to see if anyone would recognize him if they go there. Maybe they could find like a yearbook. Which they do. They find this lady who points him out, like, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy who always had the stack of porn.
Yeah. We busted him so many times for porn in the locker. Like,
Oh yeah, Hugh, the porn freak.
everywhere.
We know him.
Yeah, we know him.
He's still here.
He was the horniest
right.
kid I've ever seen.
The less said about him, the better.
Just, God, I've never seen somebody aroused by woodshop before.
Yeah. So they head off to the school. They track him down, and eventually,
Which is also a complete violation of his.
yeah,
of
like
his, yeah.
this teacher. You see, she's like pointing in the
And then
yearbook
like writing
to
down an
exactly-
address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just gives out all his info.
Although I do want to talk, like, I love the way that whole scene is put together because, like, it's almost, none of the action is really centered on what's going on there. Like, the camera's always moving around. And
Which, thank God. Can you imagine how boring that scene would have been?
Exactly.
Have you seen this guy before?
And what do you guys
most
call that when
movies
they
do
explain
that.
I
stuff?
know.
exposition?
Exposition.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like exposition.
No, because
No.
they were smart enough to, like, kind of give you the idea of what was being said.
Yeah.
But then at the same time,
But
showing
then,
that
like,
there was
really hammering that paranoia.
yeah,
Like, what's
like
hanging
do
around.
more of that, Hollywood.
It was
Yeah.
Yes.
They essentially said we could do that, but let's make it look cool.
I feel like another movie would have just had them walk into that office and they
Well,
would sit
it
down
would've
and they're
just-
like,
yeah, it
oh
would've
yeah, I
just
remember that
been-
kid in his porn mags.
It would have just been, yeah, it would have just been like an establishing shot, and it would have just been 2.5 minutes of shot, reverse shot, shot, reverse shot. Like,
His favorite movie was Carrie 2, The Rage. And so he thought he was going to get to high school and get laid like no problem. And then he found out that ain't it. And so now he just jacks up to magazines.
red flag number one. He listed his favorite movie as Revenge of the Nerds.
Right. So they find out his real
the
name.
kid with the real strong right arm.
He's either a
of an
guitarist or
Hell of a libido on that
Yeah.
kid.
What was going on with his right arm? So they find out his real name is Jeff Redmond.
That was Joshua Jackson.
Oh yeah, no,
Kinda
it
looks like him a little bit.
Yeah,
Little
it
bit,
does.
yeah.
Those like pacey vibes from
Yeah.
Dawson's Creek.
Remember that episode when he
Jackson.
chloroformed
Oh.
one of the kids?
Oh yeah,
it
that's
was a
right.
good
Oh
one.
yeah,
Classic Dawson's Creek.
class and yeah. So they decide to leave the police out of it. They're like, should we contact the police? They're like, no, let's just show up to his house. So
I mean, in fairness, the chances of police actually doing anything in this situation
Exactly.
pretty, you know.
What would you tell them to do?
yeah, it's
The
like
guy I had, yeah, like the
The guy had consensual
sex with, sick the sex demon after me, like,
yeah. It's like, oh,
Oh, you're talking about the guy with the porn mags.
yeah, the
you know what?
porn guy. Oh,
Go back to Detective Bailey. He's got this.
He has a
He's been
masturbation
working on that
station.
case
Come
for
on.
a while.
Keeping an eye on that kid.
this kid's been, yeah, Bailey's been collecting tissues from the crime scenes for years.
Every so often we find her. We go to a location where she's like a pile of tissues.
Believe it or not,
Following
he
this
has,
son of a bitch for years.
he has masturbation stations all set up across the county. We don't know.
He pulls up like a map. He's like, he's making
He's got
following him
he's got pins and ropes.
across Detroit.
Just full on Charlie Day conspiracy board.
The amount of DNA we have on this guy is unbelievable.
We almost got enough to clone him.
The CSI are going nuts because I keep bringing it in.
We don't need any more samples.
At this point, they're like, just bring it to a sperm bank.
Some guy in a lab, he just throws like a garbage bag of tissues on his desk. I need you to run samples.
Keep running samples.
Please, Mr. Bailey. No more
on,
samples. I need to know if it's him.
We gotta find out. We gotta find him. So the crew go to his home, and he lays out everything. So Jeff Redmond's like, okay, this is how I got it. It was a one-night stand. This lady who I never saw again, I hooked up with her, and I'm like, that tracked. And, and
I
he
also
lays-
like how he says, we can't talk here. Let's go out in the yard and sit in a circle.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're outside, and he's like, "Oh shit! Do you see that girl right there?" And like the girl like looks over, and they
like,
all see
yeah,
her. and
Yeah,
he's
the girl's just like, the fuck is with this guy? Oh, God, it's him again.
Tissue boy.
so,
I've heard stories about him.
yeah, but they're like, "Yeah, we see her." He's like, "Oh, okay, good. All right, so here are the rules." And he starts laying out more of the rules and how he got it. The best thing to do is just pass it on. Just keep passing it on, so that way it won't get back to you. I mean, eventually it will. But if you keep passing it,
Yeah,
maybe
maybe
it'll keep going and
yeah.
going.
You get
The whole,
another
like-
weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole idea is just to kind of push that far enough down the road.
Can down the road.
By the time it gets to you, you'll long for the sweet embrace of death.
Yeah.
And I like how, like, well, I don't like it. He's like, oh, you're a girl. It'll be easy for you to just like sleep around with
I
anybody.
mean, that is probably the most 20-something male thing that he could say, though.
Yeah. Well, it's easier for you. For me, it's like terrible. I had to take you
Yeah,
on
like-
3 dates.
I had to like take you on.
I'm just like built and handsome. It's so hard
No.
for me to maneuver my way
not
through
like
dating
I'm.
channels.
Yeah, it's not like I'm 40 and losing my hair. I'm sorry, I'm not projecting. I swear.
So Greg, the neighbor, he drives them up to a remote area that belonged to his family. It's kind of like a condo / beach house
thing.
Also a White House. I just want to point out, since we're talking about, since I brought that up before, interesting point.
So the group, they're settling in, and Greg, he gets his gun that he has on hand.
In the shed.
In the shed.
In his Jack Shack.
In his Jack Shack. Yeah.
His masturbation
No, this isn't
station.
the other one.
Guys in this movie. I saw how he handled the hose earlier on. Yeah.
He's like, this guy's amateur with his magazines. I got the internet.
So the group settles in, and he finds a gun, and he's like, all right, I'm going to give this to you to practice shooting. He gives the gun to Jay, and she's practicing. Not a good shot.
No.
At all. And so the next scene, they're all kind of hanging out.
I like the logic of, hey, there's a ghost chasing me. I'm going to shoot it.
Yeah.
Well, we
What
don't
else
know-
are you going to do?
I mean, we don't.
Right.
I mean, they don't know at this point what it is. They just know that something is pursuing.
They know it's
them.
like supernatural.
Yeah, they know it's supernatural, but I mean,
Well, you're not
also
gonna shoot a-
let's be honest. We're in America here. Our first response is to use a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's how we do it.
That's why I bring a gun to
America.
the show every
America. So they're hanging out, catching some rays, and that's when this is one of my favorite scenes of the movie. So they're all kind of hanging out, and the Thing shows up, and we think
Her
at
back is
first,
turned.
Wait, the rock creature?
No.
Oh, not the thing.
Not the
No, not the Thing. Not Big
okay.
Thing.
the thing which follows.
Not,
see.
not the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's clobbering
Because I'm
time.
pretty sure the Invisible Woman grabs her hair.
Oh, right,
Yes.
yeah.
You can see how I got there.
Yeah.
You see how I got there.
So this scene's really cool because all the friends are hanging out, and we don't see, Yara, right? And they're hanging out, catching some rays, and then behind Jay, we do see Yara, and she's like walking like slowly
Or what
towards
you think
them.
is Yara.
Right. And then we get that little psych out moment where all of a sudden Yara's in the water and she's like swimming by. Like, and she's like, hey guys, it's pretty nice in here. And then you're like, wait. So when it does make that cut back and you see how close that thing is, it's super terrifying.
Anxious,
Yeah, it was a great scene. I thought that was
The whole beach scene is good.
oh yeah.
They didn't
Yeah.
make that could have been clunky or CGI and made it look goofy, but it looked really good, I thought.
Yeah. And then we see where this thing ends up grabbing Jay's hair. And she's like, whoa. And the sister sees it and Paul sees it. And so they jump into action. They're trying to grab her away from this thing. And so Paul picks up a lawn chair and he hits the...
WWE style.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just like, oh, steel chair to the back. Where'd he get the chair?
Bone saw's ready.
And so... I
Paul
got
with
you
a
for
steel
3
chair
minutes.
and a gun.
I like to think that the ghost was like, I got you for 3 minutes.
3 minutes of bleed time.
Bleed time. And so he grabs Jay's hair. Paul hits it with the chair, which kind of loosens the grip a little bit, and then Paul just gets smacked like 3 feet into the air. Like he's just boom.
Superhero style.
Oh my god, yeah.
For the record, that must be awfully terrifying to be hit by nothing.
Nothing?
Yes.
Yeah. He was literally
Ask my
yeeted.
wife.
Oh.
Oh no.
Does she call you nothing?
Arr.
Ouch.
Ouch.
That's a hell of a thing to read into.
There's a couple ways I could take that.
Yeah. So they run and they try to get the gun, and so they run into the shed, and Jay shoots it, but it just gets right back up and keeps coming at them.
But it is our first indication that the creature, whatever it is actually something physical. That, like, between the hair and everything, that's the first
Yeah,
real
and the
indication that
chair.
we have that it
And
is
the bullet
something-
affected it.
Yeah, like it didn't
Yeah.
do much, but like it clearly clearly bled, like when we actually saw it. So
yeah.
something physical, which is
It's confusing.
And then eventually they like shut the door, and that's when we see where Paul checks his stomach, where the creature hit him, and it's all like scarred.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then we also see that Jay is like looking, and then all of a sudden the bottom of the door just gets like punched
Smashed in.
in
it's like
or something.
really the only like jump scare in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
and
really scary is that like she's like looking to see whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then Mark Zuckerberg pokes his head in.
Smoked meats.
Yeah. Smoked meats. Add me as a friend. And so this little kid tries to like crawl through the hole, and that's when Jay takes
Is
off.
the kid peeping on her, the one earlier in the movie?
Oh, one of the kids that was in the like on the fence in the
Yeah,
bushes.
remember? I think that's
Yeah.
the kid.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that then. But yeah, and earlier on in the movie, she hears a sound, and it's definitely like
She's
this kid
in the
looking
pool.
at her. Yeah.
He's like looking in through a window at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is him. I just
That little
checked.
creep. That little creep.
Yeah, what a prick.
What a cretin. So Jay takes the car. She jumps in and she just takes off, leaving all her friends there with this thing. And
How
eventually,
inconsiderate.
I know how.
Well, they're not going to do anything to them, right?
No,
Well, no.
I mean,
What's
it's
his name
going
got
after
fucked
Jay.
up by it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it just yeeted Paul like across the
Right.
beach. But like, why wouldn't it? You know, like, oh, maybe it's gonna harm all my friends now. Eventually, she goes off road and into this cornfield, and she wakes up and she's in the hospital. And that's when she decides, she's like looking around, everyone's sleeping.
Yeah, that's got to be terrifying. Where the fuck am I? Where is this thing?
How long have I been
How long have
out?
I been out for? Yeah.
Yeah. Her arm is now in a cast. She has a bandage over her forehead.
Yeah.
And so she looks around and everyone's sleeping in the room, like all her friends. And then she notices that
Pile of tissues.
Greg. No. A pile of tissues. Oh no. Oh no. Hugh's back. Hugh? So she notices that Greg wakes up, the neighbor, and the next scene she decides, all right, I'm going to pass it on. And Greg is totally okay
It's
with
very
it too.
predatory too, because it's
Yeah.
kind of like she's like looking around. She's
Well,
like,
that's-
"Yeah, you'll do."
That's kind of
Yeah.
like what interesting part about this, because that's the first time, like, it's interesting because it's the first time she really displays any kind of agency in what's happening to her. Like, the rest of the movie up until now, she's really been passively sort of just reacting to what's been going on.
She's a very passive character.
Yeah, and this is one of the few times where she really takes action on her own. But what I also found interesting visually is how the camera is like, we see these pan shots across the hospital windows where it's like all these people enjoying these little intimate moments, like with their sick family or sick friends or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's these very touching moments. And then we get to Jay and Greg, who are, having sex, but it's like there's nothing going on in her eyes. Like, it's just, she needs to do
Dead
this.
eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Yeah, it's almost like a yeah.
It's almost mechanical.
It's very mechanical.
Yeah,
It's just
and,
kinda
and
like,
also
ugh.
her eyes are like transfixed, like towards the door.
Well, yeah,
like
she's
that's
looking
ajar,
everywhere
like
but at
waiting
him.
for something to arrive.
Yeah.
So she's almost like, "Is this thing coming? Is this thing coming? Is he coming? Is this thing coming?"
Is he well, and that actually dovetails into a scene that happens a little bit later in the movie that I absolutely like when we get to. I'll tell you about it because I think that had a really interesting. There was a really interesting fake out at that scene, but I'll tell you about that when we get there.
Yeah. So now it's been 3 days, and Greg still has not encountered anything. And
He
now
doesn't
Jay,
expect to either, because I always got the sense that he didn't buy into any of this. Because
Yeah.
even like when the girl got her hair, when she got her hair pulled,
Yeah.
he was turned away, urinating.
and he didn't.
Yeah.
And like he wasn't in the shed with any
Yeah.
of them, so like
I think he just thinks they're all
nuts.
yeah, and he's
Because,
just
like,
kind
the
of
only-
like kind of exploiting it in a
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
the only
Like,
because
yeah,
the
I'm
only experience he
have sex
had
with you.
was the only experience he had was Jay shooting through the door.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
so all he saw was like she's just firing a gun off in the air.
Which is interesting because in that moment where they have sex, it's like they're taking advantage of each other.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's like passing it to him, and he's just like, "Cool."
Yeah.
I wanted
works.
this.
Yeah.
Check that one
Yeah, I
off the
believe
list.
it.
Have sex in a hospital.
So yeah, it's been 3 days, and Greg still hasn't encountered anything. And now Jay's recovering from her broken arm, but she's back home and kind of locked herself away in her room. So Greg doesn't really buy into it, but Paul's like, "No, I'm sure. Like I'm telling you." it happened. It kicked a hole in the door. It grabbed her hair. I have like marks on me. Like she's telling the truth.
I mean, one of them there has to be like the skeptic in the group who doesn't,
right?
And I think it fits that it's Greg who is clearly getting set up to be the next target.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, fuck around and find out. In this case, quite literally.
So that night, Jay is keeping watch and sees it. The creature, right? But it looks like Greg, and Greg's like walking down the street wearing white. He's in like white PJs, basically.
He's wearing Charlie's sleepwear, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And so she sees it, and it like grabs a rock and throws it through the window. I actually love how this just plays out. It's just
I love this whole like monster's got a real thing for breaking windows.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes into Vince's observation
that everybody breaks and enters.
Yeah, everyone breaks into each other's houses.
Yeah, it does.
I would be absolutely horrified to break into anyone's house, like even my friends. I would never just want to walk in.
I had to break into my house once because I lost my keys because like I got locked out. And like I felt weird breaking into my own house.
Yeah.
Because like,
did you kick yourself out of the house?
No, it was one of those things where like you leave the you're running out, and like I wasn't driving, so I was just walking somewhere, and like you run out, you lock the door on your way out, and then like you're halfway down the block before you realize
Oh shit! I left my keys.
Oh shit! I left my keys on the counter, and you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than the one time when I living in Seattle. We had like a key combo, like it was a button combo, and I locked myself out until my landlord responded to me with what the code was because I was too drunk to remember it.
Would you like me to keep that story in the episode?
Hey, we've all been there. It's okay.
We get it.
We meet on Wednesdays.
So we see this thing B&E, and Jay runs over and sees the thing attacking / killing Greg. First, she sees like the mom, right? Greg's mom, and then it's like banging on Greg's door. Eventually,
is mom.
And so Greg opens and is like, "Mom, what the fuck? What are you doing?" And then it just hops on him.
Naked mom.
Yeah. And it pounces on him.
Yeah.
And so...
and there's very clearly like a weirdly sexual overtone to that.
Well, Greg is a real motherfucker.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, we see the creatures...
What's weird about it?
Gyrating on top of the sun.
Yeah.
And like, we see,
I don't know. I asked my friend Oedipus and he didn't see anything weird about it.
Oedipus is like,
that joke is a little too highbrow for us, sir.
Hold on.
Oedipus, good scene.
Wait, how do you spell Oedipus? Google E-D. Oh yeah, Oedipus.
There
Got
we
it.
go.
Got it. So, we see, it's like salivating a little bit, and kind of like all these like oozy juices are just like
Keep going.
connecting between Greg and this creature. It's really gross.
Yeah.
And we see it very briefly, but it definitely stays with you. How
long did it stay with you, EJ?
Too long. And
What was weird is that it actually did that rotating camera thing, and then it showed Hugh, and he was watching.
and he's just like,
He was,
No magazines this time.
yeah, he cast the magazine to the side.
Magazine, your work is done.
Yeah.
oh no. So
When I found you, I was but a boy.
but now
When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Bader.
Bader. So Jay hops in the car and takes off. Eventually, she comes across a boat
This
on
is
the
a
beach.
really lowbrow episode,
really
by the
is.
way. We're not usually this lowbrow.
So this is actually
This
the
is-
scene that
yeah.
I was going to tell you about. This is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie because the way
Don't worry, he's going to class it up right now.
Here we go. Thanks.
I'll try to
Bring it home.
class-
Bring it
I'll try
home.
to class
Jay
this
is
the fuck up
definitely
for
the
you.
balance of this
Yeah.
episode.
Enough of this cum talk. Educate us.
My brain just completely short-circuited for half a second there. This is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it's the soundtrack, the music, the way it's shot. Because if you look at it, the way it's shot, the camera is centered on Jay. It follows her like it's just a follow shot. So it shoots her the way that it shoots the monster. She's wearing white. it's got that same sort of dissonant bass sound to it that has always sort of been in this movie sort of a cue that something bad's about to happen. And we see her walk towards the boat. And I love that the implication is that she's going to go out into the water and she is going to find that boat full of people and she's going to pass it on.
Right.
Like the implication that she is going to do something horrifying to preserve her own life.
I actually wrote that in my notes also, is that she's kind of walking like the monster is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like her
She's
mannerisms, she's got that very stiff sort of slow gait. The music indicates that something is about to happen.
She is now like becoming a threat.
And the fact that she like
monster.
strips down, like this monster, every time we've seen it is
Naked.
kind of like
It's almost half
naked,
Yeah.
or almost like half undressed. You know what I mean? So like she is approaching
and she's
it
got
in
the
the same
cast
way.
on, and she's got
Yeah.
a cast on and bandage on her head, so there's clearly the signs of violence.
Trauma.
So yeah, like I love that fake out. I love that the audience, if you've never seen the movie before, is going to look at that and go, "Oh my God, she's gonna do like she is gonna willingly condemn someone else to die on that boat, or multiple people on that boat." To preserve her own life, and temporarily at the very, or to prolong her own life.
Those people have no survival skills.
No, I mean
she's.
they're
It looks like she was
partying on a boat. I assume that they have about as many survival skills as I do, which is zero.
Not to mention,
like I don't even think they make it through a weekend.
Yeah,
No.
Not to mention, they look 20 years older than her.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's very young, and they look like they're in their 40s.
Their 40s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys proud of me that he said implication like 4 times and I didn't make any Sunny references?
You can.
I did. I
the
didn't.
implication.
Because
Too late. Yeah, it's too late now.
Go ahead.
How you want those poor women to feel?
But yeah,
Not you. You wouldn't be any danger. So they are in danger.
I love that scene, and I love
Yeah.
the turnaround that happens where, you know, she never comes out and says it. The movie's never dumb enough to just come out and say, "Oh, I didn't do that." You know, it just comes up in conversations as you like, I can't do it. I can't bring myself to force that on somebody.
Right.
So kind of, yeah, you know, once again, it's kind of this little bit of her own agency, you know, first passing it off to Greg and then saying like, I don't want to have to. It's one of the only other choices that she gets to make for herself in the movie, where she says like, I don't want to subject anybody else to this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because back home, Paul, you know, stops over to visit, and Jay, and he pretty much is like asking, why, like Paul's like, why did you choose Greg over me?
Why'd you let Greg die instead of me?
Yeah. And he's like, why'd you choose him?
'Cause I
And she's
kinda
like,
care
well,
about
we
you."
hooked up in high school, and
I
it was
don't
just like a
hate you.
familiar thing, and I don't hate you or anything. Yeah. And then Paul is like, hey, can I just help? Like, can you
and
pass it to me?
That conversation leads me to think that this movie, while you could look at it as a metaphor for sexually transmitted diseases, actually isn't about STDs, or it could be construed as a metaphor for STDs, but I don't think it is.
It kind of is.
It kind of is, but
Kind
I
of,
also
yeah.
think it kind of isn't.
I mean, like movies can mean more than a few things.
I'm not
but
saying
that's
that's
for sure.
that's,
Like,
I'm not saying that's not a
yeah.
valid interpretation, but
Also, I give it credit for doing that because it was a really clever thing. I know it's a lot of really great horror. The stuff that people really seem to latch onto is generally a metaphor for something, or like a commentary on the world.
This is like the second movie in a row, because last time we did Ginger Snaps, and it was a bit kind of like the wolf, Curse of the Werewolf is like passed
kind of passed
through
along,
like a sexual transmitted way.
Isn't sex horrifying, kids?
Sex is terrifying.
Yep.
Once again, my ex-girlfriend would agree. Hey.
Hey.
See, I actually, the takeaway that I took from the movie, now having watched it recently, and I apologize if I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but I actually feel like the movie is, as much as it is about it, the monster as a sexually transmitted disease, I actually think a lot of it can be taken as the monster as sort of, especially given that these characters are all in their early 20s, like their late teens, early 20s, it's about that particular sort of fear, not just of intimacy, but of adult relationships that people find themselves in when they're at that age. Like, you've moved beyond sort of like high school romances and stuff, and you're starting to experiment more with like actual. I just kicked the fucking table.
It's all good.
You're starting to experiment more with like actual like having real adult meaningful relationships, and I think a lot of this movie is just. I think some of the things that this movie is trying to say is that these things are scary. That when we have these sort of one night stands or these casual partners, not making judgment calls and saying that those are bad, but sometimes those things stay with us. Those experiences that we have, good or bad, can stay with us and follow us for the rest of our lives.
There's an element of that that I picked up also that I had in my notes. Is that there's a part earlier in the movie where she's like, you're checking, you're like, oh, let's make sure. There's an element of it where at the very beginning of the movie, she's in the car and she's talking about, isn't she kind of like talking about what she thought
like an adult relationship, or like fantasizing about this idealized relationship.
Yeah, exactly, and then it sort of like gets to the point where it's almost like the sex in this film is treated very transactional.
Yeah.
And often very like unpleasant and very often displayed in a violent manner.
Yeah, because we're all talking about.
I could be smart too, EJ.
I believe it. I read your notes.
Yeah,
because we're talking about. Like,
go ahead, you could. I wrote these notes and I'm having a hard time reading them.
Right. I'm the same way. I'm like, what did I write here?
You know how you can alleviate that, guys? Don't take any fucking notes.
Hey.
That's true.
But yeah, like because I was watching it and I wrote down in big letters. I wrote down like a fear of intimacy, because these characters all treat sex as this very transactional, violent, purely physical, like mechanical thing, and I'm jumping the gun on the resolution of the film here a little bit, but the ending of the film is sort of the first instance, or sort of the final sexual act of the film is really the only time where I feel like we don't feel like it is. It's done out of love. And the proceeding scene, the end of the film, the very last frame of the film, the very last shots of the film, are these really hopeful moments, because we don't know what's going to happen, but it's not one person by themselves. It's two people
they
holding
both,
hands in a relationship.
They both literally look stronger and less fearful. Like Paul looks very like confident.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He looks like we're protecting each other.
Yeah, and like Jay doesn't look terrified or panicked or anxious anymore. Like they look calm, like they're ready to face the future. And that's kind of why I think that, like, there really is the obvious, like we were talking about before, the obvious sexually transmitted disease metaphor. But I also think that it's an interesting way to look at the film as this sort of like fear of commitment and fear of relationships, and how that sort of anxiety follows us throughout our lives until we can learn to accept that anxiety is always going to be there.
That's what I'm saying. Like movies can mean more than a couple of things, but I think that's kind of like almost like the pitch. And to a bunch of producers.
The elevator pitch is like, what if a monster's an STD?
Yeah, and they're like, that's cool, because why not?
Why not?
But moving on.
Yeah, somebody said chlamydia monster, and they were like, go.
Has it been done? Who cares? Quentin Tarantino says it's okay to steal.
But yeah, Paul volunteers basically himself, but she's like, no, I'm going to keep you in the friend zone for now. So Paul and Jay, with Kelly and Yara, they head to the public pool to set a trap for this thing. Now, they wait it out until it arrives, but not before setting their trap.
So this part of the movie, the first time I saw it, was where it really started to lose me. So I started a note that says, how was it this time? Was it any better? My response, no.
Yeah.
This whole sequence is so misguided.
Clunky?
Very clunky.
As someone who is an ardent fan of this movie, and I really do love this movie, this is the scene where I go, oops. This is the oops moment.
But, I mean, here's the thing. I am a big fan of putting stuff like this out there. one moment of a film doesn't undo all of the goodwill leading up to it. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm like, well, this scene didn't go the way I wanted it to.
And I hate it when people go, oh, well, that one thing ruined the movie for me. Like, really?
Get out of here. Go listen to that score.
Right?
But but go on.
So Jay waits in the pool as bait, and she's like right dead center in the pool, and they set up all these like electronic devices around it.
We're gonna push a toaster into the water.
Yeah, like
whatever.
We're gonna just throw like toasters and radios, a typewriter, just
Take
random.
My question is, where the fuck did a bunch of 20-year-olds get an electric goddamn typewriter?
Yeah, I was like a typewriter. Okay.
Everybody go to your attic. Grab 5 things. Meet back at the pool.
Hold on, let me just drag this 300-pound IBM Selectrix to the fucking pool here. I got a Commodore 64 I can pitch in.
This scene wouldn't be as bad for me if there was a scene leading up to it where Paul or Jay or somebody kind of figures out like, oh, it responds weird to like electricity, or there's something about, or like, because he kind of alludes to like, he looks at a picture of her in the pool and he's like, hey, do you trust me? Do you remember the first place that we kissed? Like, I thought there was going to be some kind of clever thing
there. Or like establishing that the monster is, for whatever reason, like really averse to water or something. Like, it never really
needed a moment, a beat right before that scene just to make it work. But as it stood, I'm like,
it just kind of comes out. Yeah, it just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, they're like, they don't even really like lay out a plan.
They're just going to electrocute it. I kind of gathered that.
It literally diverges hard into an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah,
no. And when your movie doesn't do an episode like the plot as well,
not a good
episode,
and not a particularly good episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
There's no such thing as a bad episode.
That is true.
Yeah, let's just admit that.
So their plan is to get this thing into the middle of the pool, have her swim out, and then push all these electronic devices into the pool. But it shows up completely ruining that whole plan and just starts throwing the stuff into the pool itself.
I just want to point out that from an electrical standpoint, like, none of those devices would have enough juice in them to do like
that much water.
That much. There's not enough voltage going through that at all.
We don't apply logic here.
Once again, I'm just going to leave that there. I understand that this is a movie and that movie logic applies, but that just goes, I have put enough current through my body to know.
And so
it's the amps that get you.
Yeah.
Not to mention that none of those devices have a cord long enough to make it from the wall to the pool. But anyway,
I don't even know if they turn the devices on, which kind of helps.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
they're like real stupid kids. They don't know how electricity works.
I tell you what, these kids don't know how electricity works.
And so when it shows up, she's like, "It's here, it's right there," and they're like, pointing at it, and they're like, "What does it look like?" She's like, "I don't want to say." And at first I was like, why? But when they show it, then I'm like, well, I see. It's the father.
It's her dad.
Were they implying
like the dead father.
That the father was dead, right? He didn't like leave.
Yeah.
So is there some implication now? Is it just being cruel? Because I think it said that it can be mean.
Yeah, it could show up as something that like from your past.
It's not implying that there was some sort of like sexual abuse,
molestation.
Like
no,
that.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was the person that you last slept with is the one that was coming for you.
Which would have gotten real weird if it showed up as your dad.
That's what.
Edit at Vince. Fuck you.
I didn't realize her last name was Duggar.
So, as this is happening, eventually, we see where Paul is trying to shoot at it.
Yeah.
And he misses and he hits Yara.
Yeah, in the leg.
Right in the leg.
Hey, can I tell you a moment that I had when that happened?
Yeah.
There was a moment where I realized Yara is a completely useless character.
She really is.
She is the equivalent of a pile of laundry.
Yeah.
She is the Daphne.
Daphne.
Not even.
She's just
Daphne's
better.
If anything,
Daphne's got a purpose.
She's just slowing them down.
She doesn't do anything the whole
She got in the way of a bullet.
I think was her purpose just to serve as like the distraction for us, like before at the beach.
Her
Maybe?
purpose is
But
to
she
deliver,
didn't do anything.
I think her purpose from a cinematic standpoint is to deliver 2 quotes that are supposed to, I think, sort of represent themes of the movie.
Couldn't someone else say them?
Nah.
Right.
Because it's literally her reading quotes off of her stupid fucking clamshell phone.
Yeah.
And I just, every time I watch this movie, I look and I realize I'm fixating on the wrong thing, but I look at that phone and I just go, why does this exist? Who made this, and can I hurt them?
Again, earlier in my notes, it says, fuck that clamshell looking thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that in the first time the monster shows up, Yara is almost, like used in a way that, oh, is it Yara or is it the monster?
But couldn't you do that?
And then
with
the
any
second time
other
you're like,
character?
Like, do it
Oh,
with
it's
Kelly
not-
or...
Yeah. Like, I think the first time they establish, oh, Yara might be the monster, but it's not. And then the second time it's like, oh, Yara, there she is walking behind her. Oh, she's the monster now.
There's
You know what I mean?
also-
So I feel like, other than that...
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they did with her in a scene.
Right.
But that also could have been done by anybody else
Exactly.
that served the
I
function in the film.
feel
Yeah.
like there's parts of this movie that got excised, like in the edit, that where Yara had a bigger or different role, because there was a scene that's really out of place to me. Like, there's a shot that's really out of place to me when they're in Hugh's masturbation station, where like
Oh, the wall
Yara
falls down.
where like Yara is up on like a cupboard or something, rooting around through the cabinets, and it's like the only time that the camera really shoots one of the female cast members directly like in the male gaze, because it's Greg looking at Yara, and it just does that, oh, look at this attractive young woman's like legs, she's wearing short shorts. It's this weird shot that I think got left in there, and I think is maybe an artifact of like a subplot or something that might have gotten cut out, because it just feels really like one or two other little shots in the movie, like it just feels really out of place for the tone of the movie.
Hey, do you think Yara came through the door and was like, yo, what if we throw toasters into the pool?
She read about
Deleted scene.
She read about electricity on her goddamn clamshell.
I think that's what it
Yeah.
was. She's like, guys, no more will we run from this thing. We're taking them to the pool.
We are
We're taking them to the
civilized.
YMCA.
We are civilized human beings, and we possess the power of fire. And by fire, I mean electricity.
So, as this thing jumps into the pool and goes after Jay, eventually it grabs her leg, and Paul is able to shoot it in the head, and she gets out of the pool, and they don't see anything except her. The whole pool is now
Filled with blood.
filled
and
with like blood.
Which looks awesome.
It looks
Which
so
looks
good.
really cool, and I love that
Yeah.
like slow like dolly into the pool where the frame just kind of fills with red.
Yeah. And earlier, I like when the bullets are like whizzing through the water too, that wide.
Yeah, it's like-
it's really cool looking.
Yeah, it is really cool. Like, that's the thing. Like, even though this bit doesn't really work
There's
in the
moments
context
that
of the film,
are great.
there's parts of it, there's moments that are just, like you said, there's moments where, like, this is really cool. So even though on the balance, it's kind of like, why are we here? It's still moments where you're like, that's really cool.
Well, I think it could still work. It just, the cake needed to bake a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's one
One
tiny sequence, the
Just,
scene.
yeah.
Yeah,
ruins the whole movie for you.
It's done.
can't
More
believe-
like shit follows.
I can't believe this.
Shit
I
follows.
can't believe they didn't establish this in continuity, and it just takes me out of the picture.
So back at the house, we see where Jay actually passes it to Paul now. They are finally hooking up.
Boy,
And-
yoing.
The boy, yoing,
Boing.
and then, so Paul then, we see him. He's driving around, and we see like a couple
Prostitutes.
Yeah,
Ladies
and-
of the night.
Ladies
to
of
quote,
the night.
to quote Mel Brooks, prostitute.
Prostitute. So he sees them, and we get the implication, right, of like maybe he passed it on to them.
One of them.
Oh, now
Well,
I
no,
have a
we-
real STD.
I don't think it's. I think like what the scene is trying to say, like it's clearly Paul like thinking, do I want to pass this along? Like, do I want to foist this on someone else?
I think that seemed very predatory to me.
That seemed really predatory, and I once again, kind of one of those moments where it's like, on one hand, it does seem really predatory and kind of skeevy, but on the other hand, I think I almost want to say, like, I think it needed to happen, because we needed to understand that these people still are, like,
trying to have a life,
and they're trying to be, they're human beings who are
and plus
afraid.
the numbers just work. Think about that.
Yeah.
Dude,
the multiplicity of a prostitute and how many they...
Honestly, I'm a huge fan, and I think this is a thing that's kind of fallen out of cinema in a weird way. I like when characters operate in that gray area.
I want to hear about Vince's math here. No, go ahead.
All right, so if you have one prostitute,
Monster's going to be real
person,
busy for a while.
and they have 3 clients that day. Those clients are then going to have... It's just multiplication.
But now the question is, like, does it only pass to the first person you sleep with?
Here's
or
what I'm
does
saying.
It pass
say
to everybody.
Say he sleeps with both of those prostitutes.
Right.
And those 2 prostitutes each have 3 clients that day after him.
And then you solve for X.
And then you solve for X, but each of those clients, they have 3 people to go through before they get to the prostitute. And the next day they're going right back to work. So that number just keeps going up higher and higher.
But wait, does it up? No, this is when we start overthinking it. Is it a thing where it's like...
Wait, you have a follow-up question?
I do.
But
does it operate with one person?
Right, like, is it only the first... Like, if you have it, is it only the first person?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, if I sleep with someone else and give it to them, but they have sex with 3 other people... Is it only the first person that they sleep with that gets it, or does
That's what I was wondering, because
get
when she goes out to the boat, and if what happens is that she sleeps with all of those guys,
are there going to be like 40-some, like, are going to be like 10, like 40-something trust fund idiots about to get murked by
one
sex
by one.
demon?
That's what I want to know.
Hey, director of this movie, write to us at frequelpodcast@gmail.com and answer our stupid questions.
Let us know how the math
wanna
works.
know.
We want to know the mechanics of your
I need to
supernatural
know
thriller.
this.
We have some math problems we need to figure out.
This
I
is
have
like the
homework.
watermelon thing
This
that you
is,
get in grade school. Tommy has 37 watermelons.
This is the world's worst word problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead, EJ.
So we see where in the final shot, it ends with them walking hand in hand as maybe in the background
off in the
it
distance.
follows. It might be the person
It
or
could
the
be.
creature, but they look happy, like you guys said earlier. They look at peace a little bit.
Stronger,
Stronger.
they have love.
Yeah.
They have love.
And with that being said, that is It Follows.
Wow, what a roller coaster.
Hey,
What a roller coaster.
so like that, the way the movie ends, because
Yeah.
it kind of just stops. In
Yeah.
my notes, it just says, "Oop, they ran out of money."
Yeah. Uh-oh.
See, that's
Maybe
I actually really appreciate. So one of the things that I take an issue with a lot of modern cinema, or I should say a lot of modern cinema that's geared towards sort of the mass release sort of big money market that we sort of operate in right now, is that I think somebody needs to like go to writers and directors and producers with a tack hammer and just be like, not every movie has to wrap up in a neat little fucking package.
I agree 100%. And before
Yeah.
it got cut off because of Vince's math, I was also saying
It was important.
I like
to me.
I like in movies like this when you have characters that operate in like kind of like a gray area. They're not just like good or bad people. Like you can kind of understand where they're coming from. Everything
Yeah.
is way too clean in modern
Yeah.
movies anymore.
Yeah.
Like
That's what I was getting at, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
like
No, no.
our good guys have to be good guys. Our our bad guys have to be bad guys. Like we have to have
Resolution.
resolutions,
Yeah.
and everything has to sort of wrap up and leave us in a position where we know, and then they slayed the dragon and lived happily ever after.
Which going back to the comparisons to Halloween, like Halloween ends in a way where like
Halloween
Dr.
ends?
Like Dr. Loomis, he goes to the window,
Yeah,
and he looks
and-
out
and
into
he's
the yard,
gone.
and he's gone. That's not an ending.
That's not an ending.
but
That's-
it's so satisfying.
It's because it really just kind of hits that point where like, well, the immediate danger's over. But, what happens now? Well, that's before they made Halloween 2 and everything else. I mean, that's sort of what I like, being able to imagine worlds about what happened. Like, I love when movies give me enough to keep thinking. Like, I think one of the greatest things that a movie can do is leave me asking questions like, what happened? Where are these people going? Like, what happens to them? What happens to this?
What was in the briefcase?
What was in the briefcase to bring Tarantino into it? Yeah. Whatever happened to Marcellus Wallace?
We'll never know.
No, I think
That's supposed to be his last movie, by the way.
What?
With what was in the box.
Oh, really?
That's the rumor that I heard on Interweb.
No, I think
I hope
Briefcase.
it's like, we're going back to that, huh? No, I think like horror movies are sometimes hindered by like, you know, resolution that's so like neat. I think like when you leave things open ended, sometimes, not all the time. Some movies do call for like more concrete resolution. I understand that it's not so much a rule, but I do like when things are kind of left out there.
Well, like horror movies, especially, you know, for as, to bring back a word that I used before, for as transgressive as they want to be, or as they claim to be, they really do have sort of a, I apologize, I'm going to use another big word here. They really do have sort of a canon or a catechism that they sort of follow. And there's, you know, like people joke, like Wes Craven literally redefined the horror genre with Scream in a lot of ways by making sort of meta commentary about the rules of a horror movie. And really, I think just kind of put to paper what a lot of us had sort of been thinking about horror films before, is that, you know, for as gruesome or as horrifying or as transgressive or as shocking as these films can be, a lot of times they do have, you know, predictable, not just story beats, but predictable. I had a stroke. Predictable thematic elements and predictable series of events and resolutions and things that have to happen. And I think that's why some of the best horror movies are ones that sort of subvert those expectations, kind of like It Follows does. You know, like, is it a perfect film? Absolutely not. But
it's almost like you feel safe on a track. You're like, oh, I know where this is going, and you just veer off real hard. You're like, wait, where am I?
Yeah,
like that's a frightening feeling, not to be in control.
I like the fact that, like, we don't know anything about this creature, right? Like, we think we know some of the rules, but we really don't know this creature. It's very unknown, and the movie ends very unknown. You don't know where it's going, right?
And the movie doesn't commit one of my least favorite sins of horror cinema, where it just stops dead for 20 minutes to explain what the monster is and why the monster does the thing. Like, the first time I saw it,
a little boy whose mother used to beat him.
Like, oh, hold on. We're watching the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. Let's take a 20-minute detour while we try to humanize Freddy Krueger.
Okay, first off, that scene when he's playing hide and seek and the way he counts, I was like, oh man, I hate this. Because Freddy, at one point, he goes, 1, 2, and I'm like, what is this? Like a kid show?
But like,
this is wild.
But I mean, that's just an example. Like, I think the problem, like horror movies and movies in general, like, I feel like it's especially common nowadays among like sort of the broader tent of like superhero films. Really, I don't think films trust their audience enough.
Oh, they don't.
To just let them figure shit out on their own. Like we have to take these 5-minute derailments while we explain everything.
You know why? Because I'm not smart enough to figure it out on my own.
I
need someone to tell me.
The problem is studio heads or like certain producers are like, I don't understand this. You're gonna have to dumb it down
because
for
producers
other
are fucking morons.
But I that's honestly what I think is like, I don't understand that. But they're not giving like, artists out there like Jason or Rory who watch it and they're like, wow, that was beautiful. I totally understand and put this artistic spin on it. And producers are like, I don't get it. You're gonna have to dumb this down,
right?
For people
so
too.
like one of the examples that I always
you're not wrong.
No, one of the examples I always use. There's a wonderful film from the mid '90s by a director who unfortunately didn't really do much else of any real great worth. Rory probably knows what I'm going to talk about. You guys might know too. But Alex Proyas did a film called Dark City.
Yeah.
Which is an absolutely amazing piece of cinema. as long as you just ignore the stupid opening crawl that the studio made him put at the front of the goddamn movie, which literally gives away the entire mystery.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it.
Can you just not watch it?
You can,
Can you turn it on
Well,
and then not watch the first 5 minutes?
They actually released a director's cut of the film a couple of years ago that makes a couple other little changes here and there, but basically the big change is that it cuts out that opening crawl. And I'm not usually one who harps on like, oh, you have to watch this particular cut of the movie or the director's cut or whatever. We could have the Blade Runner argument all day about which cut of the movie is superior.
I was just about to jump into Blade Runner, so thank you for cutting off that pathway.
But like that's like Dark City is one of the movies that I legitimately say, like, if you're gonna seek it out, you have to watch the director's cut, and anybody who's listening to this should absolutely seek the movie out because it is an absolute gem of a film.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, and then we should probably jump into how we felt about it. But I do think that there are instances, if you just go through like film history, producers are not always dumb. Sometimes they make suggestions that are very, very smart. And then there's just times where you're like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just see like these like movies that get so bloated and big because these producers are like, well, this is what people want. They want this. They want that. And you're just like, nobody wanted that.
No.
And they fall on their face.
But like Kevin Smith touches on that perfectly with the Superman movie.
God. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Occasionally, you have the unsung heroes of Lucasfilm who at some point had to tell George Lucas to knock it the fuck off.
Yeah. I mean, like the whole first Star Wars, right? His wife did the edit.
Yeah, because his edit was
abysmal.
Right. So she did it, and then the reason he did the re-releases is so she wouldn't make money off that edit anymore. So, but
for the record, though, George Lucas, maybe not the best
example.
Yeah, because he's so wonderful.
Yeah, American Graffiti is my favorite.
Well, yeah, but I just think in general, like I think he's one of those guys. If I ever met him, I would just be like, "Thank you."
Thank you
for the goods and the bads.
Yeah,
but how?
Oh yeah, so let's get into it. Vince, the non-horror fan, first time seeing this movie, what did you think of this?
Enjoyed it. If there was a sequel, I would watch it.
Wow.
I'd leave it at that. If there was a follow-up to it, I'd rewatch it. I wouldn't rewatch this. If you guys made me watch another one, I would watch it.
Vince
gleefully.
Awesome.
Yeah, I followed it.
Yeah, Vince follows.
Again, and I'll just want to point out again, the dude standing on the roof is one of the scariest things I've ever seen in any of these movies. Mm-hmm. I don't know why.
That's outstanding. That's great.
Glowing recommendation from young Vince.
Yeah.
Big man, roof.
Let's go to Jason. Your pick.
So I mean, obviously it's my pick, so I might be a little biased here, but
you didn't like it, did you?
No, it's fucking terrible. Waste of 2 hours of my goddamn life.
Was it 2 hours?
No,
that's like an hour and 40.
I feel like 2 hours.
No,
you ruined my bit, Vince.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
I was gonna go on for like 20 more seconds. No, actually, having seen the movie again relatively recently after not having watched it for quite a while, I still really love it as an example of the modern horror genre.
Yeah.
And as a film, I think there's a lot there to enjoy. And the performances are generally very good. The film is put together phenomenally. Honestly, you could just watch it for the soundtrack and take enjoyment from the soundtrack, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are things like Rory and I were talking about. There are things that I don't think quite work with the film, but I don't think any of those things really detract from the enjoyment of it.
Doesn't derail it.
Yeah. Rory?
I love indie horror. I just do.
This was only made for $1.3 million, which is a super, super low budget.
The fact that it looks that good for $1.3 million is astounding.
For the record, I was thinking that earlier. I had earlier on in my notes. For all those people that want to, I guess, drag Halloween through the mud further and just completely ruin its...
Cast aspersions upon John Carpenter's holy name.
Another timeline. We need that. I would say, watch this movie if you want to capture that fall mood correctly and aim for a score like that. I love the way the movie looks. I love the score. I like that it is kind of quirky, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think it's got a lot of personality, and it's something I would 100% recommend to somebody. And it was what you were saying, little qualms here and there with it, but nothing that derails the train. I think it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
23.3 million worldwide.
Yeah, that's
For
how much
the
it made.
gross.
1.3 and then gross 23.3
So
million.
it literally
That's
made
crazy.
about 20 times its budget.
Yeah. Outstanding. I would just say this. I went to see this movie, and I've seen a lot of horror films throughout my life. And I remember going to see this. I went home, and that night I had a nightmare where this thing just kept following me from place to place, and I just was like trying to escape it. I woke up the next day and went, holy shit, what an awesome movie. Because that was the first time I remember seeing something in a really, really long time, probably since I was a kid, that actually gave me a nightmare.
Cool.
So to me, I was like, awesome.
I thought you were talking about our friendship.
Oh,
I have.
well, that too. No,
I have
love
one
this
too.
movie.
Damn
It's
it.
amazing.
I was going to say I'll let you borrow my wedding video.
So like,
Oh, no.
that's funny you bring that up because like I think I've only ever had like 3 movie nightmares in my entire life.
Yeah.
One of them was, and this might be because I saw the movie when I was about 10 years old, was Alien.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which, I mean, in fairness,
Did you have a bad burrito?
I've had several bad burritos in my life. But like Alien, I mean, I think Alien as a film is just really just terrifying to begin with.
Right.
But like when you see it as a young age, like it really kind of, I think that explains a lot why I am the way I am. But like It Follows, it was like the only other movies that have done that for me were It Follows and believe it or not, A Quiet Place.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The Quiet Place is one of those movies that like I had dreams about afterwards, and it's one of those movies that I almost recommended us that we do this. Like if they have me on the show again, I'm gonna wanna do that because that movie, I adore that movie. I saw that movie 3 times in theaters, and I think I had nightmares after every time I did.
That's
Is that
awesome.
the John Krasinski or the same?
Yeah.
Oh.
The John Krasinski one.
I'm a fan of that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More so like on like a technical level, but like I really loved seeing that in theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get into... Okay, so one thing, Jason, we like to do is we'll provide emojis as a rating.
Okay.
So, my emojis, a hospital, because there's a lot of scenes in a hospital. A popcorn bucket, because they went to that really cool movie theater.
Okay.
And then last but not least, a wave of water, because there's a lot of scenes that take place by the ocean.
Nice. I have an ant, a squirrel, and a blue jay. Rory made me turn my phone off.
Yeah, I have my,
I
have my
also
phone off right now.
had those. Hey, that squirrel, awesome actor.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ant, tremendous.
Amazing.
And,
I think it's pronounced aunt.
Was that her aunt?
It's the French. I believe the actor in question is French. So
Yeah.
And
I got bit by a fire ant.
I also
by a
have
fire
an emoji of a man and a woman because there are men and women in this movie.
Yeah.
So that's as far as I'm going.
All right.
Oh, by the way, that aunt's name is actually Antony Perkins.
It's actually Anton Tobias.
Oh.
Someone's aunt? Remember that part?
believe it or not, believe it or not, it's actually Anton LaVey, and I believe he is the first ant Satanist.
Oh. Excellent.
What do you got?
Yeah, how about you, Jack?
Oh man! All right, I'm just getting back into my phone because I turned it off before.
Oh shit! I turned mine back on.
Yeah, so I actually think mine is going to be eggplant, ghost, man, and a woman.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Got it.
Nailed it.
Box
Okay.
of tissues.
So,
Yes,
we should have had two.
we should have had the tissue emoji.
I think there's also a porn mag emoji.
Yeah.
Damn it. So
So immature this
let's
episode.
go into plugs. Vince,
All
got
I could
anything
say
to
is
plug?
Three Jacks Burger Bar. It's the Georgia Cowboy, which is a 6-ounce beef patty with a mango habanero ribs on it, grilled peaches, and baked beans. Be here or be nowhere.
You can edit this part out, but that just made me so hard right now.
Happens a lot.
That's a keep. It's an opener. It will be
We
playing
actually-
in Three Jacks.
That's going to be following me a little bit.
We actually have 30-second ads on ESPN Radio coming up. I think I'm going to put that in there.
This made me so hard right now. And then anything else, sir?
That's it, man. What do you got? Oh, my boy Adam Farley. I listened to his song a bunch of times. I have
Yeah.
to check out. Doesn't Jimmy Reynolds have something new out?
I don't know. Does he?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So then,
There's a free plug, Jimmy Reynolds.
There you go.
but yeah, Rory, you go ahead.
I got Raven View Productions. Fourth Cut Reviews is our buddy Chris Conforti doing stuff. We got Kitties of Any PA Pet Rescue. Really the only thing worth plugging on this show because it deals with cats and I like cats.
Amen to that.
You didn't mention Ella. Not a once.
Well, I'll tell you what. Ella is a cat that I got from NEPA. Kitties of NEPA Pet Rescue.
What a professional.
There you go.
She was, so before when I was talking about how like they should utilize a lot of the way this movie looks, the score for like a future Halloween movie, I also think that they should use Ella because Ella, she's a long black cat. And if you get a jack-o'-lantern and you stick her in front of it, she's going to arch her back and she's going to go, and it's going to be adorable, but also spooky.
Movie magic.
So you wanted a mention of Ella?
Spooky.
There you go, motherfucker. I gave it to you.
Adorable and
Spoopy.
spooky. What more
love
could you
it.
ask for?
She's adorable.
Spoopy.
And then we got Gravy Diggers.
Oh, of course.
I don't even know what that is, and I am automatically here for it.
Yeah, it's our friend's pot pie business. If you
Delicious.
Can, yeah,
Yeah.
delicious but deadly.
I mean, pot pie is the only true answer to what's for dinner.
Yeah. If you could stomach tinnitus, you can handle Gravy Diggers.
Botulism. We got it by the bucket full. Variant Season, our buddy Will Perna's band. Awesome stuff. You can look it up on YouTube and Facebook. Same thing with Raven View Productions and Fourth Cut Reviews. You can find those also on Facebook and YouTube. You can't find much about the Kitties of NEPA on Pet Rescue on YouTube, but they should. They should just show those cats doing creative little videos. Make them
Just being cute.
Yeah,
Just
writing
being cute,
plays.
yeah.
Acting things out. How about the Scottish play you bastards were in? Wouldn't you like to see that done by cats?
Yeah?
I would watch
Hey,
that.
everybody at home, if you're listening to this right now, you should just start sending us emails saying, we demand
Meow
the
Beth.
Scottish play. Meow Beth.
Yeah.
Meow Beth. We want to make that movie,
That's
and you want to
terrible.
see it, so donate to us. Give us your credit card numbers.
Are you plugging anything?
I wish I had things to
Are
plug.
you writing something? What are you writing about?
So,
Tell me.
What's it about?
Tell us what it's
Oh
about.
my god, I fucking hate every single one of you. I will kill you all in your sleep.
Is it a horror
Jason
movie?
follows.
What's it a?
So I'm actually working on let's say I'm working on 2 projects right now.
Awesome.
The first one is a horror movie. It's kind of taking shape right now. The best way to describe it is sort of Appalachian Gothic folk horror.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I grew up in northeastern PA. I grew up here. And I think that this area has a lot of untapped potential for just fucking creepy nonsense.
Yeah.
Like we have
The Woods.
Seven
Tubs,
isolated, like these isolated communities. So like
Three Jacks.
Three Jacks Burgers.
Oh,
Yeah.
fucking all the abandoned coal mines.
The abandoned. So yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Very cool. That sounds awesome. I
Look
can't
forward
wait.
to it.
Yeah, me too.
You know, you should. What else you should work on? Listening to frequels.
I'm working on that.
Finish an episode, bro.
I gotta drive home. I'll listen to one. I'll listen to some.
There you go.
At least some of it.
Some of it.
Yes.
At least until I get distracted by a squirrel or something.
Right.
I understand that.
I also do want to plug, give a shout out to the squirrels at Naog Park who are absolutely fearless.
Yeah.
And literally, like, I managed to get my phone, like, 6 inches in front of one to take a picture of it, and
they're very vain there.
Yeah, they're absolute divas.
Yeah. I saw one striking a pose the other day, and I'm like, oh, you just know how to work for that camera. So well.
And then they're like, delete that one. Delete that.
You know what? Yeah, I went there and I was taking a couple pictures. One actually did a line of cocaine and then was like, I'm ready for my close-up. And then it was like kind of shimmering and like, I don't know. It was kind of beautiful.
Stumbly?
Yeah,
EJ, I think you might have EJ, I don't think that was a squirrel. I think you might have had
Joe
an encounter.
That was Joe Petito.
I think that was an encounter with a creature of the Fae.
Oh.
You didn't give it anything, did you?
Yeah, just more cocaine.
Oh, okay. Pretty sure you're all right.
Yeah. Yeah, really fast, I just want to plug our buddy, friend of the show, Chris Alou. He's doing some awesome music out there. If you ever get a chance, check it out. It's on Spotify or iTunes, and you could listen, and it's great stuff. It's very Billy Joel-esque. Also, check out New Metal Messiah, Jon Snow.
Jon Snow.
He has 18 or 19 bands, like cover bands. He does everything from...
You can tell that we're not good at math on this show.
No, we're really not.
Yeah, no, Korn. He does System of a Down. Godsmack, Limp Bizkit,
Avril Lavigne.
But he really is an amazing talent.
Passionate guy.
Yeah, and one of the coolest live shows you could check out. So make sure to go onto easterntributecollective.com and you can see all the shows that they have listed. They also have an Instagram, which you could always follow there, and they announce their shows on there too.
Yeah.
And Facebook. Also, I want to give a shout out to shantytowndesign.com, which is our buddy, the Vench, Mike Vinci. Yep. And
he has my credit card information. Just want everybody to know that.
Yeah.
We had a steak dinner together last night.
Oh, did
That's
you?
where it went.
That
awesome. Explains. Yeah. Okay,
you know what my family ate? Nothing.
I guess that explains what the credit card charges on Vince's card are going to look like.
So, but if you have any things that you're working on, and this is the guy to go to, he could hook you up.
Yeah.
Also, him and friend of the show, Joe Petito, they have a thing called NEPA Movie Mania, which you could check out. It's all movie news. They try to do a lot of meetups. If they're new movies coming out,
they post funny memes too.
Yeah, they post memes and articles, just all movie news. And then last but not least, I want to promote Frequels. We have an Instagram. You could check that out.
I like them.
I like them too. They're pretty cool. And then we also have
Three Jack's third favorite podcast.
Third? We dropped out?
Yeah. Who the fuck are these guys?
Yeah. Who are they? So then we also have a Facebook. You could check us out on there. We drop pictures and upcoming episodes and little tidbits and here and there. So check that out on Facebook. And last but not least, make sure to rate and review us on Applecast or Spotify, wherever you like to rate or listen to our episodes. Make sure to give us 5 stars because we need it.
Yeah. Then trash us, but give us 5 stars.
Yeah. Give us a 5-star review, right? So just go boom, 5 stars. But then in the writing, just lay into us.
Get personal.
Yeah, get really personal, especially if it's about Vince and his drywall and all his work that he does there.
Feel free to degrade me at your leisure.
Yeah.
Oh, we will. As soon as we get off this.
Yeah, we're just gonna degrade us in any way possible.
Yeah.
Also, if you have any weird questions or movies you want to hear us do, or just want to bitch at us for some reason,
please
email us at frequelpodcast, no S in there, frequelpodcast @gmail.com. Gmail. So, with that being said, Jason, thank you so much for coming on.
Good guest,
come
dude.
back
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
And whenever, what movie did you say you would want to do? Oh, Quiet Place.
Quiet Place, or we could always do RoboCop. I'm always down to watch RoboCop for
everybody wants to do RoboCop.
Yeah, everyone just wants to do RoboCop. Maybe down the line, maybe we should do a RoboCop. But no, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and
thank you for having me.
thanks for teaching Vince a bunch of new words.
Yeah,
that he's never gonna use. Just to let you know,
They're all inconceivable.
No, but thank you
Vince
so much.
only knows one 2-syllable word, and it's drywall.
Drywall. And thank you guys as always for listening. And with that being said, thank you for listening to